for my crown, hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop. Turning the track up, I'll never go back down. Hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Logitech McLaren G Challenge 2020. This is it, the first televised broadcast, and we are very excited to see what our drivers are going to be up to today. My name's John Sargent, I'm here as your host, and I am so pleased to present one of, quite frankly, the most knowledgeable casters, if not the most knowledgeable shoutcaster in esports as far as sim racing is concerned, Luke Crane. Luke, how are you doing today, buddy?
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to introduce someone else there. Loads of lies coming in. But yes, it's the Logitech McLaren G Challenge. I am super, super excited for this. John, this is going to be an absolute cracker. How are you doing?
I'm doing just great, thank you. And I've really honestly been excited in the run-up to this competition because it's one of the few competitions in my eyes where you get people who are competing across platform all over the world, and little by little, very, very slowly, they're all going to come together and really fight for a title on even ground. So it's very exciting to see everyone popping in. Now, before we talk more about the global competition and the format there, let's take a look at what you guys can expect on tonight's broadcast specifically. Today, we're looking at the North American section. So this is the quarterfinal now. Over the last 3 months, people have been trying to book their place on tonight's broadcast, and we've got a decent selection of some of the best racers in North America coming to you tonight. 2 from the Xbox race are going to qualify. We then have 4 from the subsequent PlayStation race, which will qualify. And finally, the PC race will see 6 drivers qualify to the finals later on tonight. And we're going to be featuring today, of course, North America. It's the Indianapolis Road Course, an absolutely iconic circuit, and I cannot wait to get started. Luke, does this rank as one of your favorite circuits? How do you feel about this choice?
Yeah, it wasn't one of my favorite circuits up until I went there last year, and now I just have like this weird...
Well,
I love the place. I'm in love with the place. Like, that is... There's no other way to really describe it. Also, it's such a fast-paced circuit, John. There's so many opportunities for overtaking, and there's that long start-finish straight where we are going to see people make moves into turn number 1. It could be reckless, but also it sometimes brings out the very best racing.
I absolutely agree with that. It's so fast, and everything really does stand on a knife edge, especially when you're going into turn 1 with the potential of 3 or 4 cars going side by side. It's absolutely delightful, and as you can see here, meandering through the chicanes of turn 2 and 3, and then tightening up a little bit, moving into turn 4. And here, Luke, here's where I'm not as familiar as you might be. Because going into turn 5 and 6 here, this chicane, I'm used to the Grand Prix circuit where we do a big loop around here, but in this case, you can actually carry a lot more speed through, can't you?
Oh, it's flat out. You don't need to lift off at all there, unless you're going side by side with another driver. It's also very tough. If you do go side by side with another driver, you can indeed accrue a penalty, so you don't want to be doing that. But yeah, it's a little bit different to what you'd be expecting, John. So it's quicker there at the first part of the circuit, but then you come to this part of the circuit, and you'll be used to it just being an oval, right, to the start-finish line. But this section, we've got 4 extra corners added in.
And how do you think that's likely to impact the racing today? Because especially driving the McLarens that we are today, I was almost a little bit disappointed to see the cars just have to dip into this section. But actually, to be perfectly honest, just because we don't get the speed, it's actually really technical and can be quite difficult to squeeze every 10th of time out of that sector 3.
Yeah, well, especially the final corner. So the final corner is flat out if you hit the apex perfectly. So if you don't hit it perfectly, you'll end up in the wall, and there's a little bit of grass as well, where if you run out a little bit too far wide, you can lose the rear and you'll lose time. And you need to set yourself up well there, because if you've got someone else behind you who hits the apex perfectly, they're going to just breeze past you up towards turn number 1. So that's the most vital corner for me. The final corner, it is flat out, but you've got to hit the apex perfectly.
Okay, well, we're now into the qualifying session, which actually leads us quite nicely into the format of this evening's competition. We mentioned this is the Xbox race, and we mentioned that 2 players are going to qualify, but how are they going to qualify? Well, we've got a 10-minute qualifying session now to set the grid for a 20-minute race. So we're going to get to grips and maybe meet all of our drivers here, see how they're going to end up lining up. Is there anyone in particular, Luke, that you have an eye on today?
Do you know what? We didn't do the North America side of things on Xbox last year, so this is all relatively new to me. I've heard of Physique.
Ooh.
Physique's very, very quick. Be looking to indeed see what he's going to be capable of here today. Again, 2 drivers just getting far too close on such a long circuit, a GP circuit after all, getting so close here on their outlap. But yeah, Physique, I guess, is someone I do recognise, but for the rest of them, it's an open field. This is the land of opportunity right now, John.
It's going to be very exciting here if people are just going to end up getting a little bit mixed up. We don't necessarily... It's entirely possible, of course, that we have 2 or 3 drivers that absolutely stun the rest of the field. But based on how competitive lap times have been, qualifying to this competition, you've had thousands of people over several months fighting for a chance to make it this far. I'm expecting the margins between these drivers to be really, really small. But that's all set, Luke, on time trial and over hot laps, an actual race situation where they have to deal with other drivers close to them on track. We could see both the best and the worst of some of these drivers come out.
Yeah, sim racing is the only esport where you can have a direct effect against somebody, which is against the rules or, you know, on the cusp of breaking the rules and affect their race. You know, you could have a complete accident into turn number 1 and you could take the favourite out of the race. But you were right there. We're talking about hot lapping. Some of these drivers have just got natural talents. They may have done 10, 20 laps and they were good enough to qualify, whereas there are other drivers who may have done thousands of laps to try and get to this position. And you're really going to see it now because it's a whole different phase. The racing, qualifying, you know, you've got one chance, one opportunity. I'm reciting Eminem at this point, but yeah, like legitimately, they've got one chance here, and you will see who are the more talented drivers straight off the bat.
Well, looking forward to seeing which of these guys will end up towards the front of the grid. On board now with Physique. You mentioned earlier, Luke, one of the drivers who has made a name for themselves in the past, and we expect to do reasonably well here. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. The timing beams have been crossed by a couple of drivers, and Physique is provisional pole at the moment. A 1:23.4 is almost a full 999 thousandths of a second above second place. So a decent benchmark to start us off.
Yeah, that's pretty much going to be there or thereabouts as your pole time right now. That is a very good banker time, and well, if he's capable of doing a 1:23.4 just off of, you know, one outlap, he's going to be capable of improving. Whether the rest of the drivers here can find a full second, we're on board here with Rollface. Yeah, it's going to be very, very tough here. Let's go through all of the drivers. We've got a guy called Yamit. Again, a lot of new names here. And this is what the Logitech G Challenge or Logitech McLaren G Challenge is all about. Opportunity, finding new stars. It's an amateur competition from all around the world. So, you know, they're going to follow in the footsteps of drivers such as, you know, Veloce Isaac. So big opportunity. Isaac Gillison, who won last year. We've then got Dale Rossi. Next up then, Northeast Deer. Again, so many new names here. FJ Racing. We've then got Paleo Violet. We've then got LMR Visceral. I'm expecting quite big things here from LMR Visceral just because he's got 3 letters in front of his name, which means he's part of a team. And then we've got CTG with a couple of X's either side of his name. So he's probably an ex-member of FaZe who used to do 360 no-scopes at some point on Call of Duty.
Exactly. He's got 5 letters instead of 3. I wonder if we're going to see big things there as well. These players, of course, while they might be relatively unknown to us, have come through the gauntlet of time trials, basically getting here in the first place. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how close the field ends up bunching up. And already we can see the gap at the front down to half a second now, but Physique still comfortably ahead with that 1:23.420. It's only one driver so far not yet set a time, but we've got a 10-minute qualifying session. Are tyres likely to play a part in this, Luke? Do you foresee anything being particularly better or worse at the start or finish of the session?
You'll find that the drivers should go back into the pits after 2 flyers because the temperature of the tyres just go kind of beyond the limit. In the race, you're going to notice in the last 5 minutes that a lot of cars are going to be sliding around where the rears are really overheating. And I think the biggest thing we're going to notice today, outside of tyres, will be the quicker drivers in qualifying. Of course, they're still hot lapping, really, like we've had the time trial. But when it comes to running side by side with another driver, you know, some drivers only know one way around the track when it comes to hot lapping. But when it comes to the racing, and that's why we've added the quarterfinal stage this year, because we want to find the best racers. So it's when it comes to it side by side with someone else, trying to find, you know, time in different areas of the circuit, through different corners, through different lines, and that's where we're going to find, you know, sort the boys from the men ultimately.
When you go through side by side with someone, it's always a very different feeling to when you're just focusing on a hot lap. I should know, I was practicing the Indianapolis road course earlier this week, and let me tell you, Luke, I felt pretty good going around the track in time trial. I'm not quite setting the kind of times that these guys are, although I'd very happily say I'm only just outside the top 9. I don't think I'm that slow. But as soon as you put a couple cars out on the track and suddenly you've got something other than an apex to be looking at when you're dealing with braking into a corner, it really does become a whole different ballgame.
It does. Also, it'd be very interesting to find out what assist these drivers are using. So we've got Rollface then that's using just ABS. I would imagine that is the same for Physique. Yes, it is. As you can see on the screen there with the dial, John, you might not be aware of this, but you can see the ABS is lit up in white.
Yeah.
And then above and below it is stability control and traction control. So if they're lit up in white, they're using it. If not, then that means they've got it switched off. So we go on board then with Dale Rossi. He's only using ABS. We've then got Yamit only using ABS, which is kind of the standard, really. And, well, we've actually got some traction control being used here by CTG, which is only going to slow him down, ultimately, because as soon as you hit the curb, the traction control kicks in. You can't get any momentum. So, yeah, not ideal. Probably could find half a second at the very least if you turn that off. We've then got, indeed, Northeast Deer using just ABS. We've got Visceral then using traction control as well. We've then got FJ Racing, just ABS. And then we've got, indeed, Paleo Violet only using ABS. So 2 drivers here are using an assist. And at this level, John, that's only going to slow you down.
And to be clear, for those of us that might be watching sim racing for the first time, for example, it completely makes sense that traction control, especially when you hit a bump in the middle of a corner and you're trying to accelerate out, will affect your lap time somewhat. But what about stability control? How much of that is a factor in terms of slowing you down throughout the lap as well? Because on the surface, it sounds like a good thing to have on your side. So why have all these drivers got it switched off?
So basically, you can only... So it's really strange. So in Project Cars 1, you could use only stability control and traction control was turned off. But in this game, you can only, if you run stability control, you have to have traction control on as well. So yeah, it's one of those where you're only going to lose time. Every assist you add, you're only losing time for what your maximum pace could be.
Got it.
So that's why you'll see people only using the 1. But yeah, in Project Cars, the quickest way on Project Cars 1 was actually just having stability control on with ABS. And then having traction control off. But it's really when you are just pushing the car to over the limit where you'll lean on the traction control and it just slows you down because you can't gain any momentum. It just slows you down. It stops you from indeed accelerating effectively, especially when it comes to curbs. So this is a curb-heavy circuit. It's, you know, to maximize your times, you need to be clipping all of the curbs, literally, as we're seeing Rollface do there. And through this section particularly, you can see every single curb is being used. But if you're using traction control, indeed, it will just stop you from gaining any momentum.
And so the stability control being linked to traction control there, the primary reason why we're not going to be seeing that in this race. Maybe we'll see someone with it later on, but I suspect not at this tip-top level. And it's interesting that we were talking about finding the limit. Physique also just struggling a little bit, getting 2 wheels on the grass and opting to go back into the pits. But he's still on provisional pole. 0.475 seconds ahead of Rollo at the moment. And to be honest, even with Physique in the pits, I think he might just stay there now and say, you know what, I think I've got this.
But yeah, there's an opportunity here for Visceral. Unfortunately, he's right up and behind the car through this very technical middle sector. Ideally, he'll want to be right behind this car as he comes out the final corner. Well, he's got no one to work with now. So he wants to really catch up to the car just in front here as they come around the final corner so he can try and slipstream him. Because if he can find half a second, and slipstream in Project Cars 2 is actually really, really strong. You could find maybe 2-3 tenths. And if he's already on a half a decent lap, he could get onto the front row of the grid. But Visceral is the only one here that can indeed really encroach on the front 2 to get onto that front row. Doesn't look like anyone else really possesses that pace, although we may get some surprises. And you can see here, just sliding the rear out. You've got to be so, so careful. He's trying to take the shortest line towards the line. Is he slowing down here? Yeah, he's slowing down. So Definitely not going to be improving there. But you're right, John. It stayed with Physique. Looks like he will be our pole sitter.
And lining up alongside it, we've got Rollo, and Visceral will be in third place for the, on the grid for the race. Very interesting indeed. Dale Rossi comes in fourth. Behind him on row 3, we've got Yamit and Northeast Deer. I feel like there's a story behind that nickname, and I kind of want to find out what it is, but maybe another time. CTG and FJ Racing will be behind them, and Paleo Violet will be in position 9 for the race. So that sets us up very nicely. We've got a 20-minute race now ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to seeing if Physique can maintain that lead. So let's go.
Looks like someone's pressed the red button of death, unfortunately. So we've only got 8 drivers now in the race. Rollface will start in second position, and then it will indeed be Physique. And while they are on the front row of the grid, as you can see, they've got 2 minutes at the top of your screen. So it is counting down from 20 minutes, but as soon as everybody has readied up, it will go back to 20, and then we will start this race. It's a long run down to turn number 1. You need to get the best traction possible in this race, otherwise you're going to get mugged off straight away. And then watch for the dive bombs, because they will be coming. A lot of momentum going down into turn 1, so just waiting for them to ready up. Only 8 drivers. Again, unfortunately, it looks like 1 driver has indeed hit the red button, but here we go. Race is about to go down. We're about to get the red lights up on your screen here, and we're about to go green. Here comes 2, 3 red lights, and we go green here then at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it's time for the Logitech McLaren G Challenge quarterfinals kicking off. And I tell you what, a fantastic start then by Physique. He has managed to get up into the lead. A little bit of argy-bargy then in behind, almost 3 wide, but battling for position 2. You can see there's a late lunge up the inside there by, I believe, Visceral. That is not really what you should be doing there. And for someone of his experience, because I do recognise the name, you would assume that he wouldn't be chucking himself in there 3 wide. And as they go then through turn number 4, it is going to be side by side. And I told you, John, they can't go through here side by side. Well, I'll tell you what, actually, fair play there to Dale Rossi. Dale Rossi backed out, and I think he realises there's a long 20-minute race here, and he's got to try and just keep his car in a good position.
I feel a little bit bad for Dale Rossi off the line there. It felt like he got mugged by everyone after losing a bit of speed once Visceral came by, and he's really struggling, having to defend along the inside, but then getting passed by the other car in the identical livery as well. He's just slipped back the order to 6th. Really frustrating start for him. But like you say, Luke, it's a long race, and I think you mentioned before as well that when you slipstream behind another car, you know, there's plenty of time to be gained by following somebody else. So hopefully we'll see a scenario where some of the cars in front can't just leapfrog away and people sort of stay in touch throughout the race.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits. It's very unique in the circuits we've chosen for the G Challenge this year, in the fact that slipstreaming is huge. So if you can keep with the sort of lead pack, you're always going to have an opportunity of potentially winning here. You can see Physique then right now is 1.2 seconds in the lead, and the time is just ever so slightly coming down. So the slipstream isn't going to be very strong from 1.2 seconds back, but it's going to be enough to just gain a bit of time here. We go a bit further back here, and actually Dale Rossi then going a little bit defensive. But you saw there, John, at the start of this race, Visceral did Physique a favour. He made it 3 wide into turn 1, which meant 3 cars all lost time, and well, Physique was just able to just drive away.
Yeah, Visceral really stirring the pot there and causing a bit of chaos. He's currently sat in 4th place. He's about 7/10 behind Paleo. Wow, actually, Paleo making it up to 3rd has to be the story of lap number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just kept his nose clean, basically, and took advantage of the little bit of contact we did have at the start of this race. But the real story is that the man that we thought might be the favourite here is just streaking away at this point. You know, the 1.7 second gap now, that means slipstream is not going to be a factor at all. So really, these 3 have to work together. So we've got Visceral. We'll go on cockpit cam here for the final part of this circuit and see indeed whether he can close up. But these 3 now need to work together to try and catch back up to the leader. And like I said, this is such a unique circuit because we don't have really anywhere else on the calendar for the rest of the G Challenge where this opportunity lies for the drivers. So it's not just about the driver's actual ability. It's about using your head at this point and see what you can get out of this race by using other drivers. But they just look a little bit too far apart right now.
Trying to close up on the start-finish straight there. You can almost see just before they get under braking a little bit of ground being made, but not really enough to make an effective lunge or anything like that, Luke. It's just really just a little bit, to be honest. Is that something to do with the line coming out of the final corner for Visceral here, or is there something else he could also be doing to dial back in and try and close the gap to Paleo in 3rd?
Well, it looked like a tidy line, but again, he's using traction control. So that final corner, again, is flat out, but you're leaning on the car. So, you know, if he's just sliding ever so slightly, traction control is going to kick in, and you lose so much momentum. So you're right, you're bang on. You know, going onto that straight, you need to maximize your exit speed. It's the most important corner on the circuit. It's simple as that. That's where you can indeed gain some momentum on the driver in front, make some overtakes here. I'll tell you what though, John, let's talk about the whole field, because FJ Racing, I didn't think it's going to be as close as it is right now. Only 8 seconds separating them all. A couple of mistakes from drivers, and well, it's still anyone's game. Remember, 2 people go through, so we can almost, let's not forget about physique. He's 2.5 seconds in the lead. He could make a mistake, but there is still that one other position up for grabs, and I think anyone out of the 7 could still get that.
You see how much pressure FJ Racing is actually placing on themselves right now. Despite currently being in 8th place, you saw the 2 wheels on the grass. Really, the struggle is real, focused on trying to narrow the gap, taking advantage of the cars in front tussling for position. Borderline 3 wide as well, going into the next braking zone. This is going to be potentially messy.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see then in the background, we have indeed got Yamet, who's being very clever here. He's not trying to affect anyone else's races. He was clearly getting on the brakes a little bit earlier. And, well, ideally, FJ really wants... well, no, it's not. It's CTG. It's just fallen off the circuit there. On the power a little bit too early. And, unfortunately, that has cost him off the back of the pack here. And, well, FJ Racing, by being patient, is now back with his pack. But they can't go side by side, because they're just going to fall further and further behind the rest of the field. And that will be all she wrote very, very quickly in this race. We're on board then with Visceral right now. Currently P4, about 3 tenths behind our man Paleo Violet as it stands. And they are losing a little bit of touch here with P2.
Field starting to stretch out just a little bit, and back then, really just an example of what you were discussing earlier, Luke. It's when you put the pressure on, the difference between doing a hot lap and having someone in front of you, that starts to show, and that pressured CTG into a mistake. It wasn't contact with another car. It was simply, I'm going on a slightly different line, I've misjudged my braking point, and boom, a couple of wheels onto the grass later, that's a position gained or lost. So it all adds up right now, but for the 2 cars in front of the field, I mean, there's no one within 2 seconds of either of them. What kind of mistakes might let people back in? What might we be looking for one of those top 2 cars to potentially slip down the order?
Pardon the pun, but letting your foot off the gas, taking it 90%. You've got Physique right now in the lead, and he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. Don't try and nurse your way back into, or nurse your way to the end of this race. Don't try and take any tenths of a second off of your lap time just to sort of gallop your way to the finish line. You need to just go 100% the whole way. Don't change anything. Don't let your mind wander onto any other subject, and just get the job done at this point. They've got a real big opportunity here. Rollface, again, able to just, it was 3 people battling for P2, and now he is on his own in P2, and he knows how important this is, but he now needs to think, I don't need to chase down the leader here. All I need to do is just keep it, same lap times I've been doing over the last, 4 or 5 laps here. What are we on, lap 5? So, yeah, just the last 4 laps, do exactly the same here. Just keep growing that gap. It's now, nearly 3 seconds, which is huge. He's got nothing to worry about in terms of slipstream. He's really, the only thing he's got to worry about is whether these 2 work together. But ultimately, when you're both vying for a position of top 2, it's very, very difficult to work with someone when you know that they then have an equal opportunity, just like you, to get that position.
Absolutely right there. It's also great to see the effect on mentality that those first couple of laps had as well, because Rollface was, to be fair, only slightly ahead of the pack in the first couple of laps, and I feel like they've found a rhythm now, and suddenly they've sort of set back into hot lap mode and gone, okay, pressure's off, just focus on doing the best time possible. And I think as soon as they found that rhythm, that sort of zen mode to be in, if you like, while we're lapping the Indianapolis road course here, you can start to see the gap opening up. It's now almost 4 seconds, and he's just comfortably lapping maybe half a second faster than the cars behind. Not necessarily because he's naturally half a second quicker, but because he doesn't have that extra car in his rearview mirror right in front of him, and he's just sort of got in the zone a little bit, would you say? Yeah, well,
you're kind of right, but if you look at the actual lap times here, Physique's done a 1:24.0, quickest lap in the race, that's a fact here. We've got a 1:24.6 then for Rollface, but look, if you look a bit further back behind here, we've got a 1:24.8 then in P6. So Yamet is faster than the 3 drivers in front. So a couple of drivers are maybe a little bit out of position here, but again, you're starting to see the hot lappers opposed to the racers who've been used to doing hot laps, and they'll get 1 unbelievable lap out of 10. Whereas you look at people like Physique, they're more comfortable at lapping at this pace constantly, so they're more consistent.
Ooh, and Yamid having a massive moment there, just about managing to rescue and keep all 4 wheels on the grey stuff, but I assure you that is going to cost him a little bit of time. I get the feeling that was more driver error than any sort of evidence of the tyres going off or similar, but Luke, what did you think of that? Because that was a little bit hairy. Well rescued, to be fair.
Yeah, that's what we call a brown trouser moment. He's definitely going to need some new trousers after that one, that's for sure. But it's a great save. This car specifically, GT3 cars within Project Cars 2, are very, very difficult to save once you lose it. So Yamit, fair play to him. It might take him now a lap or so to really get over that, to really trust the car again. And it might be too late. 10 minutes, 50 seconds left on the clock. Again, only the top 2 will qualify here. So he's probably out of the hunt right now. But yeah, hell of a save, hell of a moment for him. But unfortunately, it's not really going to make too much of a difference in terms of his competition life. Visceral here, I think Visceral needs to get ahead of Paleo Violet. Because if Visceral doesn't, these two are going to lose out far too much. It's now, the gap is what? It's nearly 4 seconds. So again, you're right, John. Around about half a second a lap being taken by the leaders here on the group behind.
And it's still taken this long for the gap to increase to just 9 seconds between the first 4 drivers as well. So the field really not that strung out, of course, and that includes mistakes as well. I mean, CTG, 16 seconds behind the leader, but don't forget that was with that mistake earlier too. So the field really starting to bunch up, but at the end of the day, Luke, like you said, if you can only catch someone at something like half a second a lap, and you also have to overtake them, now is not the time where you want to be more than 5 seconds off. You need that target in your sights around this point in a race.
Yeah, for sure. Ultimately, winning races is what you want, but in this format here, the top 2, you just need to get to that top 2. You kind of want to have that chance with a couple of laps to go. Unfortunately, it looks like we've already got our 2 qualifiers unless something drastic happens. But they're just going about their business, just chilling, not really doing anything too crazy out the front there. And, well, to be fair, these 2 here are damaging by battling like this. It's a tough one here because Visceral has to get ahead, and ultimately Paleo Violet doesn't want him to get ahead. It's a strange one, but ultimately if they go side by side, they're going to cost each other. And I can actually lean on this experience here because I qualified for a competition with a driver called Tropper Matt, who actually qualified for the Asia Pacific regional finals last year. He used to live in the UK, and we qualified for the Red Bull 5G finals. This is back in 2016, and me and him, by battling side by side, cost each, because it was the top 2 then that went through, and they actually went to Japan as a prize. Me and him battling side by side cost us the chance to go to Japan, and this is happening right now.
Oh no. Yes, it's definitely one of those chicken and egg scenarios, isn't it? Because Visceral needs to get ahead in order to have any sort of realistic challenge for second. But in order to get ahead, you have to sacrifice that time in the first place. So it's might we be seeing the makings maybe of a do-or-die lunge at some point?
I think it has to happen here. I think Visceral's struggling because he's using that traction control. He's just not able to get the launch out that final corner, and he's just not able to get close enough. I think if he had turned the traction control off and he trusted his ability a little bit more, we might potentially see him get that great drive out the final corner and be able to make the dive up the inside. But we already saw in turn number 1, he's not opposed to trying to get it done as early as possible. So, if he gets close enough, I think it's going to be... there will be a do-or-die move now. With like 8 minutes to go, we're looking at potentially having 6 laps remaining, maybe 7 with the timing. There'll be around about 6 laps remaining. He's got to get it done, and I feel like it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
I wonder how much time he has left in the bank as well in terms of a lap time. Visceral lapping in the 1:25.4s as well as Paleo in front of him, but we've got Roll in front of them doing a 1:25 flat. Even if Visceral pulls a second a lap out of the bag now, it's going to be touch and go as to whether he gets within smelling distance of second place. So this do-or-die move, if it comes, has to come in the next half a lap or so, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I was talking about Physique earlier. Just keep doing what you're doing. Don't try and take any lap time off. Well, we're seeing that exactly there because he's just done a 1:23.8. So the fastest lap of the race, the only 23 we have seen thus far. Almost some side-by-side action here. Shout out, though, to CTG, who's caught up back up to the pack here. We go back on board then with Visceral. And is this the time he gets that really good exit out of the final corner? Now he needs to get underneath that rear wing. You can see that Paleo Violet is trying to break that slipstream toe. And, well, he's doing it very, very well right now, but I think it's coming. He's going to fake to go around the outside and then go up the inside. Yep, called it. Up the inside, late on the brakes. And, it's a late block there, and that is really poor. Really poor there. You can't be going to do that. And actually, I think he's going to get his just desserts by being overtaken here. Visceral's going to have to go around the outside. He's not going to be able to hold on. Again, he's going to be leaning on the car. The traction control is going to be slowing him down. And actually, Paleo Violet is indeed going to hold on. But that was naughty. And now they've really cost each other so much time, maybe 3 seconds, by having those sort of shenanigans. But that was a reactionary move there. And I don't know if Max Papis might be watching. He was actually the head steward at last year's Global Final. He would be absolutely furious with that.
I'm definitely no professional steward, but that late block looked a little bit too late and a little bit too much of a block, in my personal opinion. We'll have to wait and see what the powers that be say later. But you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, neither of these drivers is going to end up winning, because that 3 seconds is probably the last chance that Visceral had of coming up onto second place, effectively snuffed out unless we see a mistake from one of the front drivers. FJR had a mistake earlier on. I think posted a high 127 as well to allow CTG back in. So we've got good racing up and down the field at the moment, with the possible exception there being, well, that lunge and subsequent block, unfortunately. But at least they're still together. We might yet see more moves to come.
I think he set that up perfectly, to be honest, and that's what has forced Paleo Violet to react to the move. Because he just figured, no, he's just going to go around my outside. I've covered the inside line nice enough here. But you could see it a mile off he was going for the fake. But unfortunately, Violet didn't see that. So late reaction there, and yeah, it's just not really good enough. And again, I could sugarcoat it and whatnot, but I'm not going to treat the viewers like they're stupid. They saw exactly the same thing as what we did there. It was pretty poor. But this is now the business moment here. 5 minutes to go, John. And like you said, is there a chance for everybody else? Well, now this is where pressure becomes involved. Now you're so close, you're touching the regional finals. That is where indeed they earn all the prizes, and that's where they're going to be competing against some of the very best in the world from all platforms, and all this is going to start to creep into the heads if they've never been in this environment before. So Physique, again, you look at his ability here, you would imagine he's done a few competitions in the past, but then you never know. So the beauty of this specific Xbox North America is there's quite a lot of unknowns in terms of the sim racing community. So big opportunity, but again, this is where now your head starts to play tricks on you. You're like, oh my god, this is amazing, I'm so close, and that one lapse of concentration, you could indeed lose it all.
This is absolutely the place where we get to see people's maturity come to the fore. So someone like Physique, they'll be going, well, hang on a second, I'm lapping a second a lap faster. I don't need to be 8 seconds up and properly pushing things. These cars in-game can be particularly squirrely. Once you lose them, you do risk just very easily going into a spin. They're very difficult to rescue. Now might be that time for the mature head to take over and say, let's let the foot off the gas just a little bit to guarantee that I don't make that crucial mistake, because a 9-second gap is huge.
Well, Visceral's gone for the move up the inside there. He had every right to make the move up the inside there, and again, Paleo Violet is just completely blocked him, and ultimately, again, even if Visceral got past, it was probably too late in the race over the last couple of laps to really put a challenge down on the front two. But he's going to feel aggrieved here today, because it's just, you can't drive like that. That would not be accepted anywhere. So yeah, Paleo Violet, you've got to treat this as a learning curve more than anything, because you can't just block people when they're trying to make an overtake. He set him up perfectly, and I genuinely feel sorry for Visceral right now.
I feel like if Visceral was able to get past Paleo Violet and, like you said earlier, maybe only had the ABS on or something, we could have actually seen a really sexy three-way fight potentially for that second place position. But unfortunately,
look at it like this: if he had indeed closed, if he had got past and he started closing the gap on to Rollface can see the HUD, so he can see the delta. And then if he sees the time coming down, that's where he could be forced into a mistake. So, ultimately, we've not seen that happen. We've not seen him get the overtake. So it's a scenario that is hypothetical, obviously. It's just a real shame, really, that the first race is going to kind of be determined. Let's not take anything away from Rollface, and let's not take anything away from Physique. Those two have been absolutely exceptional. It's been just a clinic from them, really. But ultimately, we could have seen something a little bit more if Visceral had managed to get past him. Well, now we see the spin here, and it's a bit too late. It's a bit too late here. Dale Rossi's going to move up into 4th position. But I'll tell you what, to get this far in a competition right now, to get yourself on a podium, that's what all racing drivers, whether it be sim racing or real racing drivers, if you can't win, you want a podium. And to get a podium at this stage of a competition where you've just worked so hard, no one can ever take that away from Visceral. And I would be very surprised if we do not see him back in the future.
Completely agreed with you, and the sustained pressure there from him as well. Saw that spin from Paleo, like you said. So getting into that podium position is fantastic. We've also got another mini race on our hands as well, with Dale Rossi under 4/10 behind and in perfect slipstreaming position. This could end up being a very, very exciting finish for 3rd and 4th place. And don't forget, 5th, look at that. That gap is practically non-existent.
Yeah, those three are all going for the podium now. So like I said, it's very important that if you can't win the race, that you do indeed try and get a podium. And, well, it is going to come down to the wire, that's for sure. 1 minute 23 seconds on the clock, but don't worry about these crossing the line. It's all about when the leader crossed the line. So we will probably have 2 more laps remaining of this race again, unless there's a major issue here where he makes a mistake or has a crash. But he's 10.7 seconds in the lead here. And now this is all about glory here. It's all about what they can get from this race. It looks like they're not going to qualify, but can they get that podium at the end of this race? Yamit then just in behind. And I think Yamit probably is the fastest out of these 3 drivers, just was found out of position, John.
Absolutely. In the early stages of the race, watching Yamit carve through the field and perform some overtakes, I genuinely think Yamit is in contention here to be arguably one of the most experienced drivers. Obviously, we haven't seen Physique in much wheel-to-wheel action. Neither have we seen Rollface, but I thought Yamit has driven a very mature but also very confident race, and the overtakes were clean. His speed has been great, and like you say, being a little bit out of position, it's allowed us to see some of the great stuff he's capable of, but unfortunately, it's not enough to get him into the top 2.
No, absolutely not, and just goes to show how key qualifying really is, and also around a circuit such as this, using your head and trying to stick with people instead of battling tooth and nail. It's a fine line. Like, you have to, of course, think about yourself, and sometimes you need to try and work with a pack, especially when Physique got such a big lead early on. You know, by the end of lap 2, he was already 2 seconds ahead, where he was out of the slipstream, he was gone. Rollface has done exactly the same to the group behind him. He just let them battle for all position, and he could just drive away. So again, you know, credit where credit's due. We've got to talk about the 2 front runners here. Physique has just done what he needed to do. He would qualify pole position. He looks like he's going to have a lights to flag victory here. And, well, he's starting to showboat here, which not a huge fan of. Yeah, you don't want to see someone showboat down the back straight and then end up binning it into a wall. That's not what you want to be remembered for. So you want to be remembered for just putting in a good performance. And again, it's so early in the competition as well. Save the showboating for when you win the prizes at the end of the competition. But again, can't take it away from him. Very, very good performance here so far. Only a few corners indeed to go. And, well, it looks like we may potentially have our first 2 drivers. Again, pending any incident investigations, of course. We won't have the finalised results because there may have been some incidents we may have missed. But it looks like Physique and indeed Rollface have had a very clean race as he rounds the final corner then. And, well, our first qualifier then towards the regional finals from Xbox in North America is going to be FPR Physique. Fantastic drive there, goes across the line, Tokyo Drift style. And, well, that is a very expensive crash there. And, well, talk about Rollface. Rollface in 2nd position. And, well, it looks very, very likely that he's also going to book his place into our regional finals. And I'll tell you what, John, I wasn't expecting too much from the Xbox because, of course, we've never used Xbox for the Logitech McLaren G Challenge before. But I was very, very surprised in the future. It's looking pretty bright.
It's a very, very strong race from our qualifiers for sure. Like you say, it's pending any investigation for incidents, but also, to be fair, Physique and Rollface, you have to have other cars near you for incidents to even occur sometimes, and they were in a class of their own, I have to say. They very, very strong, really good air about them. Rollface had a more untidy first couple of laps, was just about in spitting distance with the cars behind, but then managed to find his groove and start pulling away from the rest of the pack. Visceral will be 3rd place, a little bit aggrieved perhaps, could have had a much, much stronger race, but unfortunately was battling for a lot of it. Great entertainment for us back at home, though. And Yamit may be caught out of position, wondering what might have been, but what a battle through the field there, with Dale Rossi coming in 5th, Paleo Violet, who was fighting with Visceral for so much of that, FJR Racing, and CCG to round out the field. Great first race there on Xbox. And we've got 2 more as well later this evening. We're, of course, going to be doing PlayStation, followed by PC to round off the evening as well. And we'll have qualifiers from all of them coming into the regional final. What did you think of that race, Luke? You enjoy it?
Yeah, pleasantly surprised. I feel like a lot of drivers are going to have learnt more for themselves in moving forward because, of course, some of them have cost each other, potentially running with the front two. But the front two did what they needed to do. Roll face and physique, like they were gifted an opportunity and they took it with both hands. So really, really, really excited to see them actually face off against the rest of their region when it comes to the regional finals. And I feel like genuinely they were the two standouts. So I feel like we got the best two from Xbox in North America.
We also had, of course, the fights behind them as well. And while they won't be moving forward in the competition, the fight in the closing laps between Yamit and Dale Rossi, for example. And we also had that humongous fight involving Visceral and Paleo Rossi. Paleo Violet even. That would be two drivers in one. Unfortunately, that ended in a series of collisions. But at the end of the day, collisions or not, it was pretty bunched up and it was very close racing. I think we expected maybe the field to be strung out a bit more, but it wasn't the case in the end. It was quite competitive.
Yeah, well, Paleo Violet did their very best to keep the field bunched up with the amount of blocks and stuff that was going on. Again, I don't know. I'm sorry. I get really infuriated by this. Like, I just hate to see it. So I feel sorry for Visceral. I think Visceral. I still don't think he would have had a chance because the front two just didn't make a mistake. So regardless, but like I spoke about in the race, there was an opportunity. If he could have got ahead earlier and then started closing the gap and piled pressure on. Pressure's a huge thing. Like the prizes involved in winning this competition are absolutely huge. So yeah, it's one of those. I don't know. I'm just pretty upset that it's gone down like that. But I still believe the front two, they're the ones that really did deserve it.
And the good news, of course, is that we're going to have more competitions in the future for people like Visceral to potentially come in and take a position for themselves as well. But for now, we won't talk about that because our first two qualifiers from the Xbox race are indeed cemented. So we're going to take a look, and pending any investigations, they should be the people going through. Coming up next, we've got the PlayStation race before we round out the evening with PC. We're going to go to a break now before the start of the next race. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. More action from the Logitech McLaren G Challenge 2020 is coming your way in just a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Logitech McLaren G Challenge 2020. You are watching the North American quarter-final. I'm your host, John Sargent. With me is Luke Crane, and we have just finished watching what ended up being a pretty phenomenal performance in the Xbox race, where pending final results, FPR Physique and Roll King appear to be rolling their way into the regional final. All sorts of action up and down the field, but one thing that seemed to be secure from a relatively early point, Luke, was our first two finishes. They were just very, very good.
Yeah, they were just did what they needed to do, qualified well and finished the race well. Their only real issue was for Rollface at the start, really, where it went 3 wide, but he got through that and didn't really look back. Both did this exactly the same. So Physique took a couple of laps to get outside of that slipstream zone, so he was able to drive away, and then Rollface did exactly the same tactic, let everyone else battle behind him, slow each other down, and off you go. So yeah, they did the job really well. I was, again, pleasantly surprised. I feel like there's a genuine couple, you know, maybe 3, 4, 5 drivers within that field that we're definitely going to see in the future again.
And that really shone in the first race as well, the difference between being able to execute a hot lap and also keeping calm under pressure and focusing on your racecraft, because you could argue that a couple of these drivers focusing on their racecraft, maybe on laps 1 and 2, might have gotten themselves that position or two that would have allowed them to leapfrog into the front. We can't possibly go back in time and rerun it, of course, but there's every possibility that can happen in the future. And now we move into the PlayStation race, where 4 drivers are going to qualify for the regional final. So same track, same format, Luke, but what do you think about our PlayStation field? Well, I guess some of them you'll have had a little bit more experience, as we didn't run the Xbox equivalent last year.
Yeah, most of them run in my racing leagues, actually. So, yeah, quite familiar with this field. We should see a lot more battles for sure. It's kind of the level is going to increase as we go through the platforms. Like, PC will be the strongest. It just naturally is. That's just the way it is within the Project Cars 2 esports now. A lot of the quick Xbox drivers and PS4 drivers have actually migrated to PC as well. So when the game first came out, you'd say it was pretty even across the 3 platforms. But PC over the time is a 3-year-old game now. They've migrated towards PC. Now will be the strongest, but this should be a lot closer. More drivers on track, like you said, John, but more opportunity as well. So 4 drivers will indeed go through at this stage, and we should see a few more shenanigans down into turn 1. But it's still the same. You know, the front runners, as soon as they get out into the lead, they just got to work hard, get out that slipstream zone, and just run their own race.
I'm going to ask a very interesting question, Luke, which it might elicit a very straightforward answer, but some people who are watching sim racing maybe for the first time will want to know the answer to this, and that is, if you see a lot of the best Xbox and PlayStation users slowly migrate over to PC, A, why is that necessarily? And B, is there any merit whatsoever in someone who, for example, is reasonably quick on a PC actually trying to qualify on Xbox or PlayStation? Is that kind of scenario possible?
Yeah, well, we've actually got Operator who's qualified, I believe, on 2 different platforms. We might see Operator in the PlayStation 4. Again, we'll get that confirmed. But yeah, it does pay if you've got more than one platform to try and qualify on the weaker platform. It just makes sense. That's just competition. That's the way the world works. To migrate to PC,
sure. Obviously
you've got more settings. You can, change the frame rate. You get a better refresh rate with certain monitors, and you can just tailor it to your settings more so than you can on console. Console's kind of, play it out the box. And also the PC community is just bigger. There's more opportunities. Most esports competition finals are on PC as well. It runs a lot smoother, and it's pretty much the same with any game, John. If it's on 3 platforms, it's going to perform best on PC.
Got it. Well, speaking of multiple platforms, I can confirm that Operator qualified on all 3 platforms and has chosen to race on PlayStation for the quarterfinals. So the player that you see in this lobby named Smashing Apex is in fact Operator. So we will get to see some delicious hot laps from one of the best in the business right now.
Delicious hot laps with some sauce on top. Yep, absolutely love that. Still my favourite name. Still my favourite name. It was here last year. Oh, and wow, we've got
very
some new
important question.
Oh, sorry, go on.
When you think sauce, what kind of sauce comes to mind?
Oh, wow, burger sauce. Why not? Let's do that.
Burger sauce. I'm undecided between cheese sauce and barbecue sauce. They're just so diverse. I feel like I might lean towards cheese.
Your palate is just so much more sophisticated than mine.
It could be string aerosol out of a can cheese. Don't judge me just yet. There's plenty of room to fall.
Absolutely, just for snacking on. Anyway, back to the racing here. We've got loads of new names here as well that I haven't come across. Airstrike 1, he'll be there or thereabouts, I would say, near the front from my past experience here as well. Smashing Apex, if Smashing Apex doesn't win this, if Operator doesn't win this, then I don't know, I believe the world's going to come to a halt. That guy is the best North America racer on Project Cars 2. There's just hands down. He's one of the very best in the world as well. We've got a new driver here I've never heard of as well, Texas Time 214. So it's good to see some new drivers. And actually, Smashing Apex, or Operator, is actually running in the car that he used last year in the World Finals in Vegas, John. So he's already got previous. He's been to the World Final. He's won the North America Regional Finals last year. You know, could he make it 2 for 2?
There's absolutely no doubt that the ambition is there to go one better this time around, so this is almost, in his head, a formality for Operator, but there are 12 other races to get through first, so even if he is favourite to smash through this pack, still has to do it on track before he can progress to the regional finals. So I'm looking forward to seeing what those laps look like. A little bit more drivers on the field in the PlayStation race here, and that potentially means that we could have more racecraft come into play, more drivers potentially holding each other up and battling. What do you tend to find, Luke, are the biggest differences between a field with not very many drivers in it and an absolutely packed field when it comes to racing?
We don't have to be worried, really, in terms of the actual competition. It's just more exciting, John, if I'm honest with you. We've got more drivers. They're going to be side by side. There's more opportunities for people to qualify in terms of the top 4. So, indeed, percentage-wise, we would need 18 drivers to match the Xbox qualifying positions. There's only 13, so more drivers in terms of percentage in the field will go through. But, well, it's 23.580 from Smashing Apex. And I told you, that was a very similar time to what we had on Xbox. That'll be very, very tough to be beaten. He will go faster than that, but it'll be very tough for anyone else to beat him. That is how fast he is, John.
Physique did set a similar lap time, and we all said, that's a little bit of a banker. High 1 minute 23s to begin with, and Operator's already come in with a 1:23.5, and I have no doubt there'll be another attempt to go even faster than that. Source right behind him on a 1:24 flat at the moment, and we've got Texas behind that, but a full second behind on a 1:24.9. So there's a little bit of catching up to do, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. It is still early in the session. Several hot laps are possible. It's only 10 minutes long, but each car will get multiple opportunities to set one of these laps, and it'll be exciting to see how bunched up they are at the front of the field.
Yeah, well, look at Source there, leaning on his experience. He knows that going into the pits, getting a fresh set of rubber, with half the session still remaining, that he is going to gain a bit more time. He's currently in P2, which will be good enough to qualify, but he'll want to try and push Smashing Apex as best as he possibly can. I'd be very, very surprised, actually, if Smashing Apex doesn't get near on the 122s. He's on a 123.2 now, so he needs to find 2.5 tenths of a second. Yeah, this was the first circuit in the actual time trials, and he won that week. So, yeah, this is a perfect track for him to come on. Home soil, of course, you know, being North America. He's got everything in his... just everything working for him at this point. Again, he's just one of the very best in the world. There's no two ways about it. It's just as simple as that. He is that good. If he loses here, it will be down to maybe a potential turn 1 collision, I would say, because we have got full damage on today as well. So that might be the only reason as to why he wouldn't qualify. Lost Prototype then currently in 3rd position. Actually, Texas just takes that 3rd spot there, just shy of just over a second off of Smashing Apex here. So you can see that there's such a big disparity between P1 and the rest of the field, but the rest of the field going from P2 down to around about P5 is pretty close here. So it still should be pretty interesting. And big dogs like Airstrike 1 still haven't got a time in here, and actually, judging by the timing on screen, we've got about 4 minutes to go. Airstrike needs to get out the pits as soon as possible, otherwise he won't get that other opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting that some of the drivers choosing, well, maybe it was a mistake or otherwise, but not having completed a lap yet at this point suggests that we really need to get a move on. Is there a particular reason why, do you think, that Operator has chosen to qualify and race on the PlayStation platform rather than on PC, Luke?
Regardless of what platform it would have been, I can't see him not qualifying, but the level on PC is just going to be higher, so it's just going to be an easier experience for him, and he's probably got multiple steering wheels, so you know we've obviously got the G29 and the G923 now, and the G920. Like they all go across different, like Xbox is the G920, G29 being the PlayStation, and he might just prefer like the PlayStation world. Just something as simple as that, like the buttons might be in a better position for him. It could be something as simple as that, but yeah, PC will always be the most difficult to qualify on, so it makes sense for him to indeed qualify on a, I say not lesser platform, but lesser ability in terms of the whole field. Like you're still going to get some of the top drivers, you're going to get 3 or 4, but on PC you're going to get 7, 8, 9, 10.
Got it, right. And there are top 4 actually going through from here, and you can see an absolutely blistering pace, 123.2. These are the kind of times that we haven't even seen in the previous race, so continuing to get faster as the day progresses here. I'm a little bit surprised that no one's actually gone within 8/10 of him right now, so possible for a repeat performance of what Physique did in our first race. Operator appears to be in a league of his own right now, Luke, so absolutely on the money there.
All he's got to do is get through turn 1 and have no dramas of anyone behind him. Quite fortunately for him, P2 is Source, who is a bit of a seasoned veteran within Project Cars 2 at this point, so he will probably expect him to be relatively clean. Source was here last year as well in the regional finals. He didn't actually manage to get to the world finals, but he was at the regional finals. So yeah, he can lean on his experience. He knows that at this point, winning the race doesn't matter. It's just getting that top 4, you move to the next phase. You know, coming 4th or 1st, it really has no bearing on the regional final. So yeah, he's going to be happy that that driver's there. But then there's a couple of unknowns. So we've got Snipper Pig and we've got Texas. Those are a bit more unknown, so could be interesting down to turn 1, but I'm sure that all of these drivers will indeed be very respectful, and we won't see the same as what we saw with the Xbox with a little bit of blocking.
Very interesting take on the strategy. It's something I hadn't considered before. If Operator's in the PlayStation race, it potentially leaves an extra spot for their teammates in the PC race. So maybe a little bit of inter-team helping out there. I can see that being a
Team
thing.
Highlands Racing. Oh, those dastardly Team Highlands Racing. Always trying.
Very crafty.
No, they're an incredible team within Project Cars 2 esports. They were there from the very, very beginning. And yeah, there'll be other drivers. I'm not too sure actually who's racing on PC from Team Highlands Racing today. I believe Flipmode will probably be there. Scorpion will probably be there. Wildwin as well. I'm sure they'll all be there. Actually, I think Wildwin actually might have some naming ceremony he's got to go to. So hopefully that's... hopefully he's had that change and he's able to race, because he's, again, one of the very best in the world. But yeah, Team Highlands Racing, that's a very good point. And I guess you've just read that in the Twitch chat, have you?
I may or may not have had some anonymous contribution from Twitch chat. Thanks, guys. But absolutely. And we've seen a new name come up, interestingly, in second place. Snip's still half a second shy of where Operator is, but a new entry, and more importantly, a second car moving into the 123s. Although I would like to point out that's me being incredibly harsh on Source, who has literally done a 124 dead. So I guess we can invite him to the party as well.
Well, invite someone to the 122 club, because Smashing Apex, aka THR Operator, has just posted 22.8, and I'm telling you now, that time will not be beaten today. That will be the fastest time we see in qualifying, regardless of the platforms. That is just alien, as we like to call drivers that are above average, or well, above amazing, actually. The aliens, and Smashing Apex is one of those. Again, I don't like calling him Smashing Apex's Operator, but yeah, that is just a ridiculous time. But he'll be a little bit worried here, and again, this is not any bearing on Snip at all. Like, I don't know the driver, I've never come across him before, but he'll be worried because it's an unknown. You know, he'll be much more comfortable around drivers he's raced with before, so it's going to be interesting to see how indeed it does go down in towards turn number 1. We've got Puma coming across the line now. Does he improve on his time? No, it's 1.7 seconds off the pace, and you know what you say, 1.7 seconds, John, and it's a really big gap, but considering that Operator's 1 second clear, it's very, very close from second down to around about, I don't know, 9th position. It's still pretty close.
It's going to be very competitive for those top 4 spots. If you take a look at the time in 4th place all the way down to 8th, just over 3/10 actually separates every single car in that range. So still plenty can happen. The race is complete. Operator's time isn't going to be beaten, but like you said, Luke, shenanigans down into turn 1, or even just a poor start leading to be overtaken, and suddenly Racecraft is going to have to take over. There are all sorts of variables that can still ruin a race. It is not job done yet, although qualifying on pole position by a comfortable margin is certainly a big part of that. Smashing Apex, aka Operator, in first position. Snipper Pig in second, with Source right behind. behind him. We've then got Texas Time and Lost Prototype, who will round out the top 5. Spidey, Puma, and Toxin are behind them. Fatman 7 in 9th, and in 10th position, we've got Cone Dodger representing STX.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is the race number 2 of the evening. PlayStation 4 North America being represented right now. We have got probably the best North American driver on Project Cars 2 right now in Smashing Apex on pole position, but there's an opportunity here for new drivers such as Snip and Texas. Source has been here before. Can he lean on that experience? So we're waiting for the timing to indeed go back to 20 once every driver has readied up. Looks like no one's pressed the red button of death this time, so all 13 drivers will indeed embark upon this race, which is fantastic news for everybody watching at home. Shout out to everybody watching right now. Hopefully you enjoy the show, and well, just to let you know, we've got 3 more regional finals coming up for you over the next 3 weeks, and then in November and December we head to, quarterfinals, and then in November and December we head to the regional finals where things get really serious. Everybody on the same platform. But you're here for the first one. This is the North America racing here. PlayStation 4. We're in for a very, very good time. Again, still waiting for them to ready up here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A couple of them might be fluffing their favorite pillow, just making sure that they've got their drink topped up. Again, this is sim racing after all. You can have whatever you want next to you. It's fine. The flag waver there, waving that green flag, letting everyone know that we're good to go. There's always one, though. It'll only be one person that has it ready.
Lined up. All 6 of your steering wheels just on the desk, admiring.
Yeah. He's Smashing Apex. He's got all his 17 sim rigs set up nicely. And well, we're about to go live here. And well, I think we've gone green here, but unfortunately we've got the timings up on screen, so we need to see that disappear. Smashing Apex is in the lead here. We're going to do this via the timings. And Source then is actually taking the lead here. And hold on, what's going on? Smashing Apex is down the back of the order here, so it looks like there may have been some incident here. And we cannot see anything, unfortunately, which is not ideal.
Yeah, not too sure what's going on there at the moment.
No, we should get this really sorted. Don't worry.
It's all right. We've got the teletext broadcast here. We're completely fine.
Yeah.
Source at the moment in the lead, but I'm very, very concerned with Smashing Apex going down to 12th position and already back up to 9th. This could actually end up being scintillating. I'd love to see. Well, the selfish player in me would love to see Smashing Apex come back from the back of the field and fight for the top 4. I don't actually know what's going to happen with the race, if we're going to see a restart or otherwise, but it's certainly been a very exciting beginning.
Yeah, Smashing Apex already back up into P9 again. This is like the teletext version of Proceedings. We're just waiting for indeed for it to be removed here, the timing on the screen, because right now this is not ideal viewing. This is not what we want to be seeing at all. So we're just waiting here. Just going to be sending messages to make sure that the observer here is ready to indeed turn the timing screen off.
I'm looking at the interesting things with the gaps at the moment as well, and it's worth noting that just at the start of lap 2, I'm not really sure how, but Source has managed to gap the field by over 2.5 seconds. It was actually close to 3 at one point as well, and in a single lap, that is way more overpowering than anything we saw in the Xbox race. That you have to really be either driving like a demon or having second place defending seriously hard, or both, to get that kind of gap at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those situations. It's one of those situations, yeah, you've got to take full advantage. Look at this, Smashing Apex obviously been involved in something. He's now down into P6, but he's already making his way back up towards the leaders here, being the top 5. Again, top 4 just go through, so getting yourself back up into that is exactly what we want to see.
Smashing Apex at the moment, 16 seconds adrift on lap 2. You can see the gap between Operator and Airstrike 1, who is in 5th place, is approximately 10 seconds. But if you remember from qualifying, Operator absolutely smashed everyone else in terms of lap time. So a second a lap is not only feasible, it's almost expected. which means that if he's in 6th place right now, it's going to be incredibly interesting to watch him continue to move up the ranks as the race progresses. Again, apologies, ladies and gentlemen, that you're seeing the timing screen at the moment rather than the racing. We're suffering some technical difficulties at the moment, and we're going to do our best to get the racing back on screen as soon as possible. I'd love to see a replay of the start and what actually happened to Smashing Apex, aka Operator, but as it currently stands, while I appreciate it's in text format only, it's a really delicious prospect right now, and he might actually be involved in something else because he's just dropped to 7th place. This is very, very peculiar indeed, and I really wish I could know what's going on here, but 10 Club has not only passed, but has put half a second between himself and Smashing Apex, and, oh, hang on a second, he's right back. That's a mistake from 10 Club, no doubt, because he's just lost 2 places there. A lot going on right now. There's a good chance as well that Smashing Apex has suffered car damage from the potential incident in the first corner, which might explain why, while he did carve up the field from 12th position, he didn't necessarily immediately jump back into the top 4 or something like that. Still got about a 10-second gap. It's just over 11 seconds now to 5th place, who is now Puma Racer, so Airstrike 1 has managed to come back. And that gap appears to be stabilizing at the moment. We won't really know what the kind of pace of Operator is until he gets a full clean lap. So we're really just looking at what end of lap 3, start of lap 4 looks like. A couple of cars coming across the line now, but it's not clear what kind of pace he can actually manage for the rest of the race.
Yeah, apologies to everybody at home. Unfortunately, our observer's actually disconnected from the session. So this is what the screens come up because of the disconnection, unfortunately, and we can't get off of it. So, yeah, we're doing our best with what we can do here, but it's just a very unfortunate situation. Umsor still leads, Cone Dodger in 2nd, Fat Man is in 3rd, and Airstrike 1 is in 4th. I don't know whether we're going to be able to restart the session or anything like that. I just have no idea. This has never happened before. The disconnect has happened, unfortunately, and it's meant that we're stuck on a timing screen, which is, yeah, just really unfortunate. So,
it's
yeah,
difficult for us to know whether or not the race is going to be restarted as well, because we don't actually know the circumstances under which the race started. It could well be that someone jumped the gun and we do actually have to have a race restart. But the fact of the matter is, we're not the ones that saw that, so we can't make that decision. So we are waiting for that to be passed on to us, but when we have more information, you guys will be the first to know.
Yeah, this is esports. This is what happens in esports events. Like, there's always something that happens in terms of gaming. It's just the nature of the beast. And again, it's just really unfortunate. And we apologize. These things just happen, unfortunately. That is life. Things go wrong. But yeah, the disconnect has happened with our observer. It's just a huge shame. Umsor still leads here. We're waiting to find out exactly what could happen. Hopefully, I'm saying, we might be able to get a restart here for this. But if there's nothing untoward that's happened in the race, then the integrity of the competition would be called into question. So it's kind of like a tough situation for the admins to deal with and whatnot. But as it stands, though, Cone Dodger is in the lead of the race. Source in 2nd. Airstrike 1 is in 3rd. Puma Racer is in 4th as it stands. And, well, there's a 12-second gap then to everybody else here. And actually, it looks like we have got Smashing Apex no longer in the session here. So he is no longer in the session. Last season's North America champion is out of this race.
Was in the pits, and we can only speculate, but perhaps due to damage, he's decided to retire from the current position. Again, we don't really know what happened at the start, but obviously quite a lot going on. Fat Man as well, who was in one of the strongest positions after the first couple of laps, is now suddenly back down to 7th place as well. So a lot of drama both up and down the field. And you can see from the best laps, actually, that several drivers are running out of position as well. Snipper, who had a phenomenal qualifying, sadly, is now down in 9th and will be playing catch-up from a very, very big gap down. So I'm going to speculate here, Luke, because I can, and because we didn't see anything, and my imagination can take me to absolutely wild places. But I get the feeling that several large pile-ups happened on lap number 1.
Yeah. Looks like we've lost one driver because of that. And again, without us being able to see, we can't really, question as to exactly what's happened. Although I can see in the background that there's a red car, so it's a retirement to the pits more than a quit out of the session. So still in the session. Cone Dodger, though, again, just taking the opportunity here in P1 as it stands. Umsor 2nd, Airstrike 1, Puma Race is going to be tough for them to be beaten right now. John, it's just a very unfortunate circumstances. Again, we don't actually know what's happened. We know that there was some sort of accident at the start here, and it happened before turn 1. That is for certain, but we just don't know exactly what has happened.
Oh, there'll be subsequent there'll be subsequent things that happened as well, because on lap 6 you don't expect the gap to be over a minute and a half from first place to the last couple in the session. They're so that the field is so spread out that you know that several major incidents have happened. I just wish we knew where. Source being overtaken for first place as well, with Cone Dodger somehow pulling out a 4.5-second gap in just a couple of laps. That tells me that maybe Source is suffering from some sort of damage, because that is a big gap to pull out very quickly as well. So unfortunately, I realize I'm teasing you guys by saying this, but it sounds like there's a lot of action and a lot of variability on the field in this PlayStation race, and unfortunately we haven't been able to see it. We're still waiting for confirmation as to whether the current race stands or whether we're getting a restart. As soon as we have that information, we will immediately pass that on to you.
Yeah, we will absolutely pass the information on. Say we're still waiting for an official ruling as to what is going to happen here. Apparently, there's been a big incident during the race as well, from the information I've got. But Cone Dodger then is in P1 still. Umsaw second, Airstrike 1 third, and Puma Racer is in 4th. One Shoe currently lapping a little bit quicker than Puma Racer, so they may see them close up. But we won't actually see them close up. We'll just see the timing screen close up.
5.7 seconds between first and second place, and I don't really understand exactly what happened when Cone Dodger passed Source. You could see they were within a second, within a tenth even of each other, and you imagine that's going down a straight and clinical braking into turn 1 or possibly the back straight there. But I don't understand how this gap actually got so wide so quickly. The top 4 in the last race, I think, were separated by just a second or two halfway through. And in this particular race, if you go to 20 seconds behind the leader, well, guess what? That's already just the top 4. Very, very spread out. Lots of incidents and a lot of drama to begin.
Yeah, I think everyone's pretty much got damage. It did seem like there was a big incident at the start of this race where a few people have taken full advantage of the situation. And again, the front 4 are just doing what they need to do. It is One Shoe is genuinely closing in on P4. Whether he's got enough time to close in a 10-second gap, I really don't know. But this is just not really ideal to commentate on at this point in time. Again, we just genuinely apologise for you all watching at home. This is something that's well out of anyone's control, anyone's hands at this point. It's just one of those things. Cone Dodger, though, he's taken full advantage at this point. A 125.795 on his previous lap. He's definitely the quickest man on circuit as it stands, although Lost Prototype's doing 125 zeros as it stands, but about 122 off of the pace here. So it's,
right.
yeah,
well,
not really too much we can describe.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a confirmation for everybody. There was a connection issue at the start of the race. It affected both the spectator client as well as a number of the drivers. So while I appreciate we're not going to get that much of the action replayed, that was an issue that affected both the drivers and the spectator. And as I'm sure some of you in chat expected, we are going to have a full restart of the race. So don't worry, we will get a chance to check the action out again. We just needed some time to talk to the admins to 100% confirm exactly what happened, hence the delay. It is absolutely the right call for us to do this, and now we have confirmed we will get a full race restart. So we're going to go to a break while we get the drivers back into lobby and we get the race restarted for you. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Take this opportunity to grab a drink, get yourself a snack, and we'll be right back with the PlayStation race. See you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Logitech McLaren G Challenge 2020. Don't worry, we're going to get the racing back underway at some point soon. To give you guys a breakdown of what just happened, we had an issue where our operator's still in the lobby, although he wasn't for long. Our observer, unfortunately, disconnected from the lobby, and it actually ended up affecting a couple of the drivers as well, operator included. We're not 100% sure how or why, but what we do know is that we're going to be restarting the lobby. And as Fatman said in chat, my daughter walked over to my rig, shifted gears, and oof, I'm sure I can find a way to make that excuse maybe in a couple of years when I have a daughter. But you know, it's one of those things. It's esports. The connection stability is a big thing as well, and unfortunately in this particular instance, one thing just happened to lead to another. So we took a little while to make sure we knew what was going on and getting to the decision, but we're getting all the players back in the lobby now. It does mean though that we're going to have the qualifying session again. So Luke, good news, very, very competitive lobby, and we probably get to see more delicious hot laps from operator. Is he going to dip into the 122s again? Okay, who am I kidding? He probably will, but here we go again.
Yeah, it's another opportunity. He actually was involved in an incident at the start where the disconnect caused contact with other drivers from what we've heard. So a chance for him to not redeem himself. It wouldn't have been anything to do with him. But ultimately, you know, that does kind of sum up in, you know, sim racing in terms of esports. Like, there are incidents that happen. It is one of the only esports where you have a direct effect on someone else's performance, whether you like it or not. That is just the way it is. People mistime their braking. It just ultimately is sim racing. So yeah, exciting. We get to do it all over again, and that's just really the only right way of doing things at this point. It would have been really unfair for that to have continued, and also I don't think I could have done another 10 minutes there.
Oh, I don't know. I was getting right into the gist of teletype casting, but unfortunately, we're not going to have to do that very much longer. I'm sure Luke will be pleased to know that we are going to see the cars and the full grid, rather than give you the MS-DOS version of the race back in my day and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to go to a quick break now, ladies and gents. Everybody is getting into the lobby now, and when we return, we're going to go straight into qualifying for the PlayStation race. See you in a sec. Welcome back to the Logitech McLaren G Challenge North American quarterfinal. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the PlayStation qualifying and race. We have had to remake the lobby, so qualifying is going to happen once more before the players are then going to move back into the race. Hopefully we won't be suffering from any more issues this time around. These things happen in esports, but Luke, we are back, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this grid is going to shape up.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it'll be too different, but it does give people an opportunity that maybe didn't get their lap time in that they were capable of. Also, they may have got caught up in traffic in qualifying, as Fat Man just sent a cone flying there. But yeah, it's another opportunity for these drivers. And at the end of this, there may be a couple of people disappointed, but there may be a couple of people that are more happy with the situation. But hopefully, we have no more issues. We get the racing underway, and we are all good for the next two races.
As a reminder for everyone at home or people who might have just tuned in, Operator is driving in this lobby. If you hear us say Operator, it is SMA on the left timing screen you are looking for. Smashing Apex is the fastest North American sim racer. I was going to say in the world, but that doesn't make sense after North America, on Project Cars 2. So very exciting to see what they can do. I mean, I'm not going to lie, Luke, there was a part of me that wanted to see Operator fight back from 9th place. Like, there was a part of me that just wanted to go to the race and see what they did. Because that was, even though we were just looking at it from a teletext point of view, that was both chaotic and delicious at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a commentator's dream. It's what people at home will want to watch as well, apart from people associated with Operator. Ultimately, they want to see him do well. But, you know, everyone loves an underdog story, and, you know, for him to see him come through the pack again, ultimately he did retire from the race, so he was involved in something else as well. So I don't think we would have had that anyway. But yeah, it doesn't matter now. It's all done and dusted. We are moving on to this specific race right now, and Smashing Apex is hit at 123.3, not quite the pace that he had in the first qualifying session, but this would have been good enough for pole position anyway, so he's back into form there. Cone Dodger, who was leading our race, is currently second. We've then got Snip in third and Texas in fourth. The only one that really isn't in the top four where they were was Source.
Source at the moment, 1.8 seconds off of Operator's pace right now, but similarly to how the previous qualifying panned out, if you take a look at third place all the way through to sixth, it's just a couple of tenths of a second separating all of those cars. So in terms of the competition for the top four spots, because remember, the regional finals will include the top four from this race, it really is all to play for. Still over 5 minutes left, though, in the qualifying session, so all of these drivers will have at least one more opportunity to put in a hot lap. But in terms of mistakes and in terms of coming back after accidentally going off the track or similar, we're starting to reach the point now where actually you might not want to be making too many more of those. We need to start seeing those non-banker lap times up on the board.
Yep, for sure. This is now where it comes to the crunch here. We've got just less than half the session to go. And well, Source momentarily was up to P2, but STX has just put himself back up onto the front row of the grid. There's Source then after getting his flyer in. Again, it's just top four that qualify here. It doesn't matter whether you finish first or fourth. It's all about just being in that top four. So you just got to keep yourself nice and clean at the start of this race. Obviously, qualifying is going to be absolutely vital here. Still 4 minutes, 40 seconds to go in qualifying, so plenty of time. Half the session still to go. I'm expecting to see some moves and shakes, that's for certain. But again, down from third down to around about 9th position. It's still pretty close, John, around about second. But the top two are, again, a little bit ahead of everybody else.
Car in the pits now to come back out. There won't be too many more of those, I think, as people will be coming out at least on hot laps, out laps even, to get one or two final cracks in. That's setting a hot time here. Interestingly, Operator only ahead by half a second at the moment, so we have got someone into the 123s, in fact 2 cars into the 123s with him, but he did just respond by doing a 122.9, so very similar kind of pace that we saw last time. And this word gets used a little bit too much, in my opinion, in mainstream motorsport, but I do believe imperious is an absolutely correct word to use as far as Operator's qualifying performance goes.
Yeah, another 22. Like, that is just god tier level in terms of qualifying around Indianapolis. Very few people have ever gone on 122 in a GT3 car, let alone just the McLaren. It's sensational, but to be fair, a 123.475 is just a very good time as well. So STX is hitting a very good level himself. Source a little bit off the pace, but again, the pressure's off. It's not like the Xbox League race where you had to finish in the top 2. There are 4 positions available. So, in all fairness, John, it might be worth the other 3 drivers, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, just to ignore Smashing Apex. Let him do his own race. Let him go, have his own race, and then you guys battle for those 3 positions. Because if you dwell on the leader of this race or leader of qualifying right now, that could affect your performance. Because, in all fairness, that's almost unobtainable. That is world level right there. So I guess we'll see how it goes in the race. But if I was 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, knowing that just getting into the top 4 qualifies you, I wouldn't be too worried about Smashing Apex. I'll just let him crack on with whatever he's got to do.
I completely agree with you there, Luke. I think if you're any one of the drivers chasing Operator right now, you're thinking, okay, I have 2 opportunities to take a position off Smashing Apex in the race. 1, into turn 1, and 2, if they make a mistake. Let's not worry about anything else right now. Let's crack on with our qualifying performance, because if you take a look, 2.5 tenths separates 3rd through 7th. And a couple of places on the grid, even though slipstreaming and overtaking is such a big thing here in Indianapolis, just a few places on the grid could make or break the game plan for some of these drivers here. And the focus is all about getting into the top 4, getting into the regional finals, and hopefully being able to race for some serious money and prizes off the back of that. But right now, you're absolutely right. Just focus on getting the job done and making top 4 in the lobby, because the field is so competitive. 3rd through about 10th. Very, very close.
Well, yeah, if you look at the first 2 here, half a second between those, but then look at 3rd to 5th. It's less than a 10th of a second. One of those drivers, if the first 2 come in, like, again, hypothetically, if P1, P2 in qualifying finish P1, P2 in the race, one of those 3 drivers that are within 1/10 of a second won't qualify for our regional final. So, yeah, it's a tough one here. You want to get rid of Smashing Apex out of the equation, but you don't really want to get rid of too many people out of the equation in terms of your own performance, because then the spots become, of course, 2, then it becomes 1, and you're only battling for 1 position, and it becomes a little bit more like Xbox. It becomes a little bit tougher on your mind. So, yeah, it's about mindset, I would say. But right now, you want to be in that top 4 on the front 2 rows of the grid. Hope nothing goes down into turn 1, or if something does go down, it's all behind you, and you can look at it in the rearview mirror and just drive off into the sunset.
Just under 1 minute left to go in the qualifying session now. We've got 1 car, half a second back if you take a look at that timing board. And then we have 3 cars within 1/10 of a second of each other. Behind them, 2 more cars, half a tenth separate them. Behind them, another 2 cars with just over half a tenth separating them. It is absolutely all to play for in our second race of the day. And we have got 3 for you as well. So plenty of action still to come here in the Logitech McLaren G Challenge. And with 20 seconds left to go now, I think Operator / Smashing Apex has comfortably sealed a pole position, unless we see something truly heroic. But the question is, who will line up behind him?
Yeah, well, as he improves his time there, he has a 22.7 then, and that is just sensational. Wow. What else can we say about Smashing Apex that hasn't been said already? But again, last year he was in this competition. He was the North American champion. We've got Source, who was in the North America regional finals, so he's in 3rd position, leaning on his experience. But I think the beauty of this right now is Airstrike won. He was in the regional finals last year. He's only in P10. It just goes to show that North America is really growing. It's strong, how strong it is in terms of sim racing. It's getting better and better and better. And look at P3 down to P9. We're looking at 0.6 of a second between 7 drivers. Like, that is super, super close. I think that the mid-pack battle here, let's say Smashing Apex gets a clean start. He's going to drive off into the sunset. But the mid-pack battle here, oh, that's going to be absolutely sensational.
Several cars still on hot laps as well, trying to sneak in and sneak a couple of places as the session ends. And I wouldn't blame them, because 0.2 of a second separates so many places on the grid right now that you might as well go for it. 50 seconds left to go until qualifying is complete, but the top 6 have now finished. A couple of changes of position there, interestingly, but nothing too drastic. Look at how close those mid-pack times are. This is going to be a very juicy race.
It certainly is. I cannot wait for it. This is why I do this commentary gig. These are the races that I look forward to, where it's really, really close. You have no idea who indeed will advance to the next round. Well, we have some idea of some of them, but yeah, for the 3 other spots, we just have no idea. As long as it's clean through turn 1, this could be an absolute classic here, and this could be a great kickoff for the McLaren G Challenge as we go through the quarterfinals, then into the regional finals. Again, there's 8 events over the next few months, and well, could this be Could this be the race that sets off the fireworks, sets us on our way for an unbelievable climax in these finales? Smashing Apex then on pole position as it states there. And I'm going to let John take you through the rest.
And that is qualifying complete for the PlayStation event. Smashing Apex, otherwise known as Operator, on pole position. We've got Cone Dodger in second place and Source in third. Texas Time and Spidey round out the top 5, so a relatively similar grid to what we saw the first time around. But then we have Snipper Pig, who qualified better last time. He's going to start in 6th. Lost Prototype directly behind him. Toxin Monster will then be in 8th place. Puma Racer and Fat Man round out the top 10 on the grid. This is going to be very exciting as a race, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys can do off the line.
Absolutely. Exciting times here. Again, we're waiting for them to ready up. I wonder how long it's going to take this time for them to ready up. There's always one that takes the full 2 minutes normally, but Smashing Apex is on pole position. Cone Dodger will want to be dodging McLarens into turn number 1. Wants to get through there nice and cleanly, as indeed the flag waver is waving that flag, the green flag. So we are clear to go.
He's stopped now.
For everybody. Well, he has stopped. Yes, he has.
He's got tired. He needs the break.
Yeah, he's like, come on, guys, ready up. I want to wave this flag.
If you've got 2 minutes, then fine. I'm gonna give myself a 2-minute break. It's quite difficult being up here. Oh, he started again now. All right, break time's over. He's finished his tea.
Yeah, he started again, but unfortunately, we still haven't got everyone readied up. I have no idea. You know, qualifying is going to end. You've got 2 minutes. What are you doing in that 2 minutes? Should be just ready for the racing here. You don't want to take your focus off at this stage, that's for sure. But we got 1 minute maximum before we do indeed go. They will get readied up themselves. The game readies them up if they don't indeed press that ready button. But again, it is Smashing Apex. Can he defend his North American crown this year? This is the important thing for him. It didn't go well in terms of the start in the previous. Again. Here we go. Here we go then. The flag waver is now not doing it for no reason. John's all excited about the flag waver. We're about to get the red lights here. Wow, it's race number 2 of the Logitech McLaren G Challenge quarterfinals. We're here for the North Americans in Indianapolis road course. And well, there's almost a bit of argy-bargy in the background, but everyone seems to be running pretty cleanly here. It's very difficult to indeed have an accident going in a straight line, but you'll be very surprised as to how many sim racers do manage to do that. And I tell you what, fair play here to Cone Dodger, but he's taken the lead of the race here. So Smashing Apex has not got the best of starts, and Cone Dodger said, thank you very much. I'll take that opportunity. Thank you, sir. And off he goes. And now we're seeing in the background here, battle for 4th position. Lost Prototype and Texas then. We're getting together, and actually that's not good for them. They don't want to be battling as hard as that early in the race. They will let the leaders go. And that's exactly the opposite of what they want to do. We saw this on Xbox, but the front 3 then, as it stands then, is Cone Dodger leading. Smashing Apex then. He's going to make a late lunge here, potentially. No, he's not. He's going to be patient. He's got plenty of time. He's got 20 minutes. Again, he is in a qualifying position right now. He's golden. We've got Source then in 3rd position, and Texas then is in 4th spot. Lost Prototype just dropped down a couple of positions, now down to P7. But John, the front 3 have got away, and it's a very clean start.
Very, very aggressive positioning of the car there as well from Operator, really wanting to overtake and get the lead of the race back. But it could end up working against him because such a defensive line being taken from Cone Dodger through some of those corners means that Source might actually have an opportunity to come back. So there's an argument here to say Smashing Apex, aka Operator, could actually just wait it out a couple of laps, allow them to gap everybody else a bit, because let's face it, in qualifying those 2 cars were faster than everyone else, and then focus on overtaking later on. They don't want the car in 3rd place to be too close to their bumpers this early on in the race.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Again, you don't really want to be losing too much time to let another group of cars have an opportunity. As it stands right now, the front 3, they're in prime position to qualify, regardless of whether they're 1st, 2nd or 3rd, although you see Smashing Apex there having a little nibble on Cone Dodger. Still not able to get the job done, but as soon as they start battling, they're going to hemorrhage time, and that's going to give a chance to the drivers in behind. Right now, they don't have a chance to qualify as it stands, but, you know, it's if it's going to get handed to them, they will indeed take it. And you saw in the background, lack of experience maybe from a lot of these drivers, but going side by side around a circuit like this where Slipstream is so, you know, so dependent on Slipstream to get your maximum times, to get your best positions, it's going to cost them here. Again, there's only really 1 spot up for grabs. As it stands right now, of course, lots can happen in the race, but as it stands, the front 3 have gone. And actually, in all fairness, the front 4 have kind of made a getaway here. And Spy, just down in P5, is just dropping off the pace ever so slightly. So, yeah, very interesting start to this race. And again, we talk about experience, John. And I just feel like a few lack a little bit of experience at this level of esports, and it's kind of potentially going to cost them, like we saw on Xbox.
Head screwed on under pressure. You don't necessarily notice it as much, or people don't talk about it as much because it's esports as opposed to conventional racing, but it is every bit as important. And Snip, who qualified a lot better, well, the first time around before we had the restart, maybe showing a little bit of experience here as they make their way up to 4th place. Just a couple of tenths separating them from 7th or 8th earlier on, for example, but navigating their way through the field early on allows them to provisionally grab one of the 4 spots in the regional finals that's up for grabs. Still 16.5 minutes left to go in this race, though, before the leader dictates the end of it, so plenty of time for something to go wrong, or indeed, things to go right for other drivers. But so far, everyone still appears to be in. Things are settling down to a bit of a rhythm, and maybe that heart rate might just be coming down and people settling into a groove now for a couple of these guys.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits where you can relatively easily settle into a groove because it's quite wide, it's quite open. It's not the most technical of circuits. This is actually as technical as it gets, to be honest, around this part of the circuit, and they're all relatively the same corners. But I tell you what I'm really impressed with, you know, we gave Smashing Apex the best resume possible in terms of this. There's no chance of him being beaten. And well, Cone Dodger is, if he wins this race, taking one of the biggest scalps possible. Considering, you know, he is the best in the North America right now. If you can get 1 over on him, you know, I said this earlier, John, it doesn't really matter if you finish P1, P2, P3 or P4, but if you can get 1 over on the best driver, you know he's the best driver, you know his credentials within this competition specifically, within this game specifically, how good are you going to feel? How confident are you going to feel for the regionals?
It's a very, very good feeling indeed, and at the moment, it's an exercise in soaking up pressure as well for Cone Dodger, because Operator is going to know, well, hang on a second, I'm a lot faster than the guy in front, but I think he's done what we thought he might do at the start of the race, which is, okay, let's not push too hard, let's take it nice and easy, give it a couple of laps, make sure we build up a good gap to the cars in 3rd place and behind, and we'll focus on dealing with something later. So this is all about pressuring Cone Dodger into a mistake, and to Cone Dodger's credit, that mistake hasn't been forthcoming so far. So both of these guys, good clean racing, but very, very fast lap times from them at the moment. I have no doubt that Smashing Apex or Operator has more time in the bank, but that's not what they're interested in right now. They want to see, how are you like in a race situation? How are you like under pressure? You want to play this game? Let's go.
But you're talking about mistakes, you're talking about pressure. Cone Dodger is putting Smashing Apex under pressure here because we saw a mistake into turn 1, a very uncharacteristic mistake from Smashing Apex. So, again, you know, leading from the front, just lapping the same lap times, you've got to be around about half a second to 7 tenths, I would say, quicker to make an overtake on a lap. And right now, Smashing Apex isn't quite fast enough to make that overtake. So, again, he doesn't need to. He really doesn't need to. But he doesn't really want to force it either, because if there is any contact, there are guys in behind that are not far as well. But you see the slipstream's quite a huge factor. But again, Cone Dodger isn't really under too much pressure. We've got the battle here now for P3. And, well, you can see the Snip's going to try and go around the outside here of Source. Source holds a pretty good line there. And you've got to be careful, you two. You're in a good position, but, of course, being P3, you've got a little bit more insurance than if you're in P4. But ultimately, these two could cost themselves a battle between each other for P3 and P4 and just go through. And there's 2 drivers very, very close in behind of Texas and Spy. And, of course, Texas is a top 4 qualifier, so you're expecting him to be very, very quick indeed. We head back to the leaders, though, and, well, Apex still in behind Cone Dodger. And at the pace they're going right now, he really doesn't need to make an overtake. I think if he starts slowing down significantly and there's a potential for the drivers in behind to start closing up, then I think you might see something rush. But at this stage right now, both of these drivers are doing absolutely everything perfectly.
The way that Smashing Apex is braking ever so slightly early and positioning the car, you can tell that he's almost trying to read his opponent's line and saying, okay, where are you fast? Where are you slow? Where can I get a little bit of an advantage on you to psychologically pressure you into giving me a position where I can just go up alongside for free? We're just reading him like a book right now, not necessarily needing to force the overtake, but simply working out, when can I do this? And in the meantime, if you're Cone Dodger up front, well, every single corner is an opportunity for the car behind you, and you're just having to really focus on never actually putting yourself out of position. And that is a very defensive line going wide. That's going to cost him time coming out of this corner.
Yeah, we saw that as another reaction. So Operator's gone for a great move up the inside, and they do not need to be battling like this. So Cone Dodger should just let him go. Just let him go. You don't need to be battling side by side. You know, that's where pride and your ego gets involved, and that could have ended really, really sadly for both of these drivers. It's not, luckily, it's all good. They may have lost a bit of time to P3 and P4, but they're all good at this point of the race. But yeah, the reaction then, as soon as Apex went to make a move at turn number 1, it forced, indeed, Cone Dodger to make a mistake. He ran out wide on the exit of turn number 1, ran really deep, but then ultimately he left the door wide open, and Smashing Apex now leads this race. 0.4 of a second already clear here. And well, if Cone Dodger gets an opportunity, I think with the driving style we've seen here, John, he's going to go for it, isn't he? I think it's win or go home at this point for that driver.
It's been a very, very good couple of laps for Cone Dodger, and certainly the experience, being able to get the jump on operator and leading the race has been a good one, but we were always saying about how just staying 2 or 3 tenths behind would pressure your opponents into a mistake, and Smashing Apex really just sort of prodding to see, can you actually soak this up? Cone Dodger did for a couple of laps, but that crucial mistake and taking too tight a line into turn 1 ultimately didn't pay off. Luckily, no contact. It ended up being clean racing, but you're absolutely right, Luke. Just a little bit edge of the seat there gave us a couple of palpitations. They are still 1 and 2, though, and while they're in reverse positions, they are safely in the lead and in the qualifying positions.
We talk about leaning on experience, Smashing Apex there. He made 3 or 4 moves where he looked to go up the inside, but he was never actually intentionally trying to make a move. And that would be the same for turn 1 there. I think if it was on, he still, if there wasn't a move across, he would have gone for the move up to turn 1, but I think he had a lot in reserve in terms of braking. So he was just trying to make, obviously, Cone Dodger make the mistake, run out wide, and that's exactly what happened. He didn't really want to force it where he went side by side through a corner, and he just played it perfectly, really. And again, that's using your experience levels here. Again, Cone Dodger, I've never heard of Cone Dodger, so I've no idea whether they've got loads of experience at this situation as well, but to be at this level, to be this quick, you would imagine they've been in this situation a few times. Dropping off the pace now, though, in behind Apex now, it is indeed 1.3 seconds between the two drivers, but again, they're both in a very good position to indeed advance to our regional finals. Snip then and Source, very close proximity. But I'll tell you what, the real interesting battle here is Spy and Texas. P5, P6 right now. And, are they working together? Are they working together, or are they working against each other? Because they're not far behind the qualifying spots right now, and we're under the halfway point, over the halfway point of the race here. So I think you'll find that if Texas can make a move, he will do. He was able to qualify top 4, so he's definitely got the pace to be in the top 4 right now, but he's not in the position as it stands. And there's a little bit of a gap then between Snip. Well, I tell you what, there's not a little bit of a gap between Snip and Source, because they are very close right now indeed. And while this is the opportunity for P5 and P6, this is silly from these two drivers, but, ultimately they're racers. You do not have an off button when you're a racer. But John, I don't know what your experience in within sim racing or any esports here. When you've got an opportunity to both go through, but you could also stop each other from going through, what's the best option? It's definitely to both go through, right?
Is absolutely to both go through. Cooperation is technically the name of the game, but as far as the viewers are concerned at home, and for us wanting to see more wheel-to-wheel action, it's of course delightful that Snip and Source are busy fighting each other here. And taking back to your point about Spy and Texas, well, I get the feeling they're not really being too aggressive, but I don't think they're helping each other either. Analyzing their lines and taking a look at where they're going, you can see Spy is still just being a little bit defensive, allowing Texas through on that occasion, but he was just constantly tighter and forcing Texas to go wider, giving Texas the better line.
Got him. He did it. He made the mistake, but it looked like he was going to be able to indeed hold on to that P5. But no, Texas has got the traction around the outside, which indeed becomes the inside line for the final corner. It's not ideal the way it's happened. They've lost a load of time to the two drivers in front. And I tell you what, they're going to lose a bit more time here because Spy's going for it. Spy's going for a late lunge up the inside here for P5. And Texas is going to run wide there, so he's been ghosted into that mistake. Very much similar to what Apex was doing earlier in this race. Contact between the two here. Texas time not leaving a wide enough gap there. He is now, and wow, these two, again, it's a similar situation to on Xbox where these two battling are costing each other time, and you can see visually how much time they've cost each other now because Lost Prototype is joining the party. So the top 7 here are Smashing Apex, we've got Cone Dodger, we've got Snip, Source, Spy, Texas, and then we've got Lost Prototype. And wow, these 7 all genuinely have a chance here because ultimately, if you're on your own in the race, you can make a mistake. But if you're side by side with another driver, you never know what can happen.
Texas is going to be kicking themselves, I think. That was arguably unforced error there, allowing Spy to get back through. I bet he thought he managed to make the overtake stick, but Spy, to their credit, able to hang on there, and ultimately this is a position worth fighting for, because this means that whoever's in front of that pack gets first dibs if someone up front makes a mistake. Like you said though, Luke, the more time you spend fighting, the more time you lose, and they are currently about 2.5 seconds down on the battle between third and fourth. So even if there's a clear winner out of this battle, they're then going to have a reasonable amount of time to make up in just a couple of laps to be on the tail of fourth place.
Yeah, only 7 minutes to go here, and Source needs to... Basically, Source needs to hope that Snip just drives away at this point so he can maintain the lap times and then just not get caught by this three. I know it sounds really simple. It's obviously not as simple as that when you're in the cockpit, when you actually are driving. But Source doesn't really want to get involved with Snip at this point. It's just make sure that you get that fourth position, and you're good. Go back, have some food, enjoy your evening. It's that kind of deal. He doesn't want to get caught by those three drivers, so he just wants to hope the Snip's going to do half a second a lap faster. He can maintain the lap times that's got him into P4, because ultimately he's got there because of his pace, and then not be too worried about the back three here. But if Snip makes a mistake, you know, it could give an opportunity to three different drivers in behind. You can see the Lost Prototype has closed up, but now these two drivers aren't battling side by side. They're able to just drive away again. So the front six have definitely got the most pace in this lobby. But again, it's motor racing, it's sim racing. There is every opportunity for something to go wrong. Something can happen. That is the nature of the beast. And while Lost Prototype there, as they say in poker, if you've got a chip and a chair, you've still got a chance. And well, he has got a chip and a chair and a McLaren. Is he going to be able to get himself into that top four? It's going to take a few shenanigans, but you never know.
The difference in driving styles here between Spy and Texas. Spy still just continuing to be ever so slightly defensive, costing him maybe a couple of tenths a lap, but that means that he's never going to be able to pull away from Texas. Texas is taking those wide lines, patiently waiting for the mistake, and just lying in wait, ready to pounce on the next one. Every single time he does that, though, for every lap he does that, he's losing valuable time because of the defensive line that Spy is taking. So I have a feeling that at some point soon, you saw it there in that camera shot, they're just being so careful with their lines right now, and Texas trying to squeeze every half-tenth they've got. They don't want Lost Prototype to become part of this fight, but if this fight isn't settled shortly, they're both going to be out of it for good.
Yeah, ideally what Texas needs is Spy to just increase his pace a little bit here. They're around about the 2 second mark here, have been for a couple of laps. If they can find half a second a lap, they may close up here. But again, it's a fine line now. You know, this is the final opportunity. 4 minutes, 50 seconds. You know, some of these drivers have indeed been competing for... Wow, there's a mistake. There it is. So there is the mistake then. So Texas time, trying to make the move here on Spy, up the inside, the door left wide open. And wow, now for the first time, we are going to see Texas time with some clear air. And wow, is Source now going to be under that pressure? So as we come up towards the end of this lap, I think we're going to have maybe 3 laps remaining here. I think it's pretty much now. It might be 4 laps remaining here. So now what has Texas time got? And well, John, it now officially is Texas time.
Very, very nice clinical move. That's been coming for a while. Well played as well, though, to Spy for holding out that long. But on the previous lap, he was also in danger of getting 2 wheels on the grass coming out of that turn as well. And unfortunately, based on the line he took going in, that was telegraphed to Texas, allowing him to position the car in such a way that this time there can be no question that he's got that position. Almost exactly 2 seconds behind Source now, and that's going to be a very difficult pass, but I'm really eager to see if they can close the gap.
Well, that's the perfect scenario here. Source, if he was going to make an overtake, a legitimate overtake where they're both duking for position, they would have lost a second, 2 seconds of time. But because it was a mistake, he lost no time to the front 4. So Texas now can go and chase them down. And well, how clever is Spy going to be? Is Spy just going to sit in behind here? And they already are closing up, by the way. So they've already closed up a couple of tenths here on Source. So this could get spicy very, very quickly. How quick is Texas time? We're legitimately going to find out. And actually, he's gained a little bit of time over Spy here. So looking in the rear view mirror, you're not looking at your braking points. You know, you're not looking at your accelerating points. You're not looking at your steering inputs or anything like that. So if he has no one in behind him to be worried about diving him at any point, you're going to see the best of the best here from Texas time. And I'm telling you now, I think we've got an opportunity here that we are going to see, indeed, Source and Texas fight for this P4. So Source, yeah, you can see him in the background, is visibly getting smaller here. He's gained about 0.2 of a second over this lap here, maybe 0.3 of a second. And wow, he needs to eke out a little bit more. He needs to find about 0.6 of a second, realistically. He wants to be right behind him as they go across the line on the final lap. That has got to be his target here. And he can't do too much as well, John. So, he could be thinking, oh, I need to catch him this lap. I need to do that. It's almost impossible to gain 2 seconds on someone of pretty much equal ability. So you've got to just chip away. He's against time right now, but, all he's got to do is just put in qualifying laps right now. And this is it. This is the last opportunity here. P5 gets nothing. He has to get P4. So he's got to lay it all on the line right now.
What he really needs, and what he's praying for, is just a minor mistake from Snip, because Snip and Source aren't really fighting for position right now. There's just over a second gap between them, and it looks like they've settled into some sort of rhythm. If Source suddenly has to start taking different lines to try and get past Snip because he's slowed down a little bit, well, that plays perfectly into the hands of Texas behind them.
Who's off?
That might be it!
Who was off? Who was off there? Well, there was an orange car off the circuit. Is that a lapped vehicle? Has to be. Yeah, it is. It's Fat Man who's been lapped then.
I think that's Fat Man letting someone past. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I thought that was one of the leaders then. Wow, that got me excited. So yeah, one of the leaders. And how's that cost any time then to Source? Because Source got a little bit snaky into that corner, and it didn't quite work out for him too well. Well, no, he's about 1.7 seconds ahead here. So Source is in a good spot. He's in a very good spot. And actually, if anything, Texas can't really look to go forward because Spy has caught up here. We've got 1 minute, 21 seconds remaining here. So I believe we are still going to have one more lap remaining after this. We've got 2 laps to go. Yeah. It is very, very close here. We've had some great stories. We had Cone Dodger, who's currently P2, actually leading in towards turn number 1 and held Smashing Apex at bay for a good 3 laps. And well, if we get into the regional finals, as they both will be, competing against each other if they stay P1 and P2, he's got that in the back of his head that he can lead him. And he's got the capabilities of indeed holding him at bay. So that may be something he can lead on in the future. Maybe it's a little bit later in the race, Smashing Apex coming back through the field. If there's an incident, he'll always know that he can keep him at bay for a couple of laps. So again, always just gaining experience, always gaining little bits of information about your fellow drivers, about yourself as well. Of course, about yourself. The gap, though, between it's 1.5 seconds, so it is coming down. John Source is 12 seconds behind the leader. It's now 13.7 behind the leader. But again, he's under more pressure from behind, and he is able to go forward. So it's anyone's guess here. Is the pressure going to get to Source? Are we going to see a mistake? I think that might be the only way that we do see Texas time catch up. But I tell you what, this has been a fair old spectacle to watch.
I'm looking at the gap. I think the critical gap is still between Source and Snipperpig. Because if that gap comes under half a second and they actually start tussling for position, that is the point where Texas can catch up. And to be honest, that gap has stayed absolutely rock solid at 0.9 to 1 second. I think these two are in cruise control mode, knowing that the top 4 get those positions into the regional final. And as a result, I think they're now working together. And for that reason, unfortunately, Luke, I don't think there's much chance of Texas making it in here. I'm not seeing mistakes. I'm not seeing variations in line. Snip and Source look to be just cruising to the finish at this point.
Yeah, ultimately, from my experience, it would probably be better for Texas if it was someone like Snip in 4th, opposed to Source, because Source has been here before. He's been in the regional finals before for North America, so he's got a lot more about him in terms of again, I don't know Snip's background, so I may be well off here. The Snip maybe with a little bit less experience, but it doesn't matter. He's up ahead. He's in P3. He's got that extra bit of insurance here. We've only got a few corners to go, but this is now where your brake pedal, it's not normally when you're accelerating, but when you're braking into a corner, you feel like your leg's shaking. You start to get really nervous. I've been in this position before. It's horrible. Your leg's not actually shaking. It's adrenaline. It makes you feel all sorts of crazy things. You put a little bit too much input in. You don't put enough input in, as we're seeing there. But, well, Smashing Apex is going to be a qualifier here. He was out on his own. And I tell you what, so is Cone Dodger. Cone Dodger is going to be on his own as well. And, well, they were being caught for the entirety of the race, but it doesn't matter because it is going to be Snipperpig 007, and it's going to be Source, who, again, is going to reach a regional final in North America. Lots of stories there, John, but I feel like we've probably got the best 4.
I think you're absolutely right there. It's a very entertaining race, even though the top 4 didn't change towards the end. All sorts of fantastic fights and good, clean racing as well, up and down the field. Our top 4, of course, Operator or Smashing Apex, Cone Dodger, Snipperpig, and Source doing a phenomenal job to clinch those 4 qualifying positions. Now, we do stress that these qualifying positions are provisional, subject to the race stewards or anybody else coming in and, well, verifying that everything went fine. But it looks like they are going to be the 4 that proceed to the North American Regional Final. Absolutely cracking race there. Aside from, of course, well, no, let's actually start, Luke, with the fight between Cone Dodger and Operator. It lasted a good 3 laps or so. You can see the top 10 on your screen there, but ultimately it is Smashing Apex that came away with the victory. Arguably our very first unexpected moment of the race came through down in turn 1. What were your thoughts when you saw Operator overtook?
Yeah, it wasn't like it was a dive either. To get an overtake on Smashing Apex down towards turn 1, you're expecting it to be a dive bomb. It wasn't. It was well cool, calm and calculated, came out on top. But that wasn't the only surprise. The surprise was that he held it for so long. Although his Project Cars license being an S1779 kind of says it all. He's really quite equipped in terms of the game. But the biggest surprise is he got the fastest lap of the race, John.
Very nicely played. A couple of hundredths of a second faster than Operator there. Yeah, I'm very surprised. Do we think that's because that Operator went to cruise control mode after gapping maybe 2 or 3 seconds? Or is there anything more we can read into that?
No, not really. I just feel like that Cone Dodger's got some genuine pace. I think moving forward in this championship, we've got some genuine threats in North America. North America, I would say, over the last few years has probably been the weakest region in terms of the real top talent. I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift here. There's some really quick guys, and well, when we do get to the regionals, it's going to be very exciting. But we still got 6 more to find, John.
Exactly right. And we've got some really, really good fights up and down the field in that as well. It wasn't all about Operator and Cone Dodger. Snipper Pig and Sauce, you could argue they had a little bit more of a quiet race because at the end of the day, they finished 3rd and 4th, and there wasn't really that much tussling towards the end, but I almost feel like they were working together a little bit. Did you get the feeling that maybe some wisdom, some maturity was showing through, and they decided, actually, let's call this off and make sure we see it home? Or did you think they were pushing all the way to the end?
I'd be very surprised if they weren't pushing, if I'm honest, because being P1 and P2, you've got that insurance of 2 positions behind you. If they manage to overtake you, then, of course, you can indeed still qualify. But if you make one mistake in P4, and even in P3, you could more than likely drop out of the top 4. So I feel like they would have been going at it as fast as they could. Maybe Sauce was a little bit less on the edge, let's say, because he's been here before. He knows what it takes to get to that regional final. So it's really, John, what the interesting thing is here, we've got 2 drivers who have been in the regional finals and one's won the regional finals. We've got 2 drivers there we don't know. We've never seen them before at this stage of this competition. Same on Xbox. Like, there's so many unknowns. I'm just really excited that North America on Project Cars 2 is like genuinely expanding.
Really good mix there of experienced drivers and newcomers into the regional finals for North America. So we're going to be looking forward to that. Whether you think it's cheese, barbecue, ranch, or hoisin, we're going to be seeing Sauce together with Snipper Pig, Cone Dodger, and Operator into the North American regional finals, qualifying from the PlayStation race. You've still got 1 race left to go and 6 players left to come to the regional final. And that, of course, is going to be from the PC race, which will be here after this break. Go grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a little bit of a bite to eat if you're so inclined, but make sure to come back soon because we've got 6 more drivers to send to the final. See you in a bit. Welcome back to the Logitech McLaren G Challenge North American quarterfinal, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Sargent. With me is Luke Crane. We're 2 races down. We've got 1 to go. 6 people have already qualified for the regional final, but we now need to find 6 more. The PC race is going to be coming up next on the Indianapolis Road course. We've already had our 6 drivers who are Physique, Roll King, Operator, Cone Dodger, Snipper Pig, and Source. And we now need to find, in a crowded field of 24 drivers, 6 more that will join them in the regional final. A lot going on now as we head straight into qualifying. There's going to be a ridiculous amount of action up and down the track. Luke, what do you think of this race?
Well, let's start off, first of all, with X-Wolf repping the old men of the sim racing world. He actually qualified for the world final with Operator from North America last year, so definitely going to be looking out for him. Let's just go through all of the drivers here. Arvin Nero, again, another new driver from North America. Mr. Schumacher, he's definitely got some credentials within this game, expecting him to be near the front. We've then got Z1N. Not too much information on him. We've then got Shiznit USA in P4, repping USA, definitely very passionate there. Of course, X-Wolf, we've got last year's Aldo Zampatti. He was right in the hunt to qualify for the world final last year, but just fell at the final hurdle. This guy's got some serious pace. Keep aware of him. Sav, he is very fast as well. He's an Indian, but lives in America. He was in the world regional finals last year as well, along with Max A. Power, the Canadian. He was in the regional finals as well. We go a little bit further down here. THR Scorpion was in the regional final. He actually went to the world final as a spectator, to be fair. He lives in Vegas. We've then got Great Wall, new to the scene from my perspective. Flip Mode then from Team Heiners Racing. They've already got 1 driver qualified today. Will they make it 2? We've then got Davies B, again, new to me. We've got Wildwind from THR as well. So, again, Team Heiners Racing, very highly represented today. Saitama-san, again, a new name for me. We've then got Gillis, another new name for me. So, again, a huge opportunity for all of these new names. Barbara, that's definitely a new name for me. We've then got CP Polar, who, again, last year was involved in the regional final. We've got Tom Filipovic, another new name for me. We've got Shutdown Woody in his first ever chance to showcase himself on the esports scene. Very quick driver in his own right for sure as well. And then we've got Kumori. Kumori has got some serious pace. The one thing that he lacks, unfortunately, is consistency. But if this guy gets it right, he will definitely be one to watch out for in that top 6. But as it stands right now, Mr. Schumacher is on pole position. And as Schumacher generally does, or did, we've then got X-Wolf in P2. So, John, it's wide open, but there's a few names that we do know from previous races. And there's lots of names that we are expecting to do well moving forward.
I'm really loving the fact that straight out of the gate, we've got several drivers into the 123s already. You said yourself earlier on today that the PC race is likely going to be the most competitive lobby. And so far, at least, I know it's early days, but they're really not disappointing. 1 second separates the top 8 at the moment, and that's just before we get all of the banker laps in. So I'm really eager to see what is going to happen next. I love the fact as well that we've got FLI and FIL both actually in the lobby right now. And well, you really don't want to be on those curbs, do you?
No, definitely do not want to be on those curbs. That will cause some serious tyre injuries, that's for sure. And, well, we're back in. There we go. Lovely old job. Schumacher then still is in P1, actually using a little bit of slipstream as they come across the line.
Jared stole the limelight there.
He did.
Jared's got more airtime than we do this race.
He just gave away his green card number. He just gave away his social security number. He's just given away everything.
Password 123, enter. We're back, though. We're all good.
Well, let's go back to the racing, shall we? Sav then up to P2. Again, expecting big things from Sav. And Sav is very similar to Kumori. Again, both very, very fast drivers, but it's just trying to nail that for 20 minutes. I'm actually going to give Kumori a bit of screen time here because he is capable of getting up into that top 6 in qualifying, that's for sure. Again, 1.7 seconds off the time. That's really not representative of how quick this driver is. But again, looking at the top 6 here, we've got 3 drivers that are pretty well known. But then Z1, new driver to this scene. Max A Power, we know about Max A Power, and Davey SB. The fact that we haven't got Wildwin or Flip Mode in that top 6 is a huge upset right now.
Still just under half the time left in the qualifying session, though, for them to go ahead and put those hot laps in. But you're absolutely right. This is a great opportunity for the people who we might see less of or don't know of to really make a name for themselves. So they're going to be more inclined to say, forget the banker, let's try and get to the top of the charts now and ask the pros what they're going to be doing in response. So loving these different names at the top of the leaderboard. Now, will Wild and will Flipside respond with some lap times that are out of this world? I don't know, but I'd love to see them do it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely on. The track will indeed get faster and faster. They'll find more time. The tires will get, especially now they've got a fresh set of rubber on as well. We will definitely see them improve here. Again, the top three separate by 7/10. So that time of 1:23.1 is absolutely lightning. Not quite as fast as Operator's time, but again, showing that there is a lot of depth in talent within the esports scene of North America. The top six haven't changed yet. Aldo Zampatti about to come across the line here. And while he needs to find 600ths of a second to get into that top six in qualifying, of course, it doesn't really matter if you're just outside the top six. It's all about where you finish in the race. But ideally, you want to start in that starting position, right, John?
Absolutely. You want to be building on that. And I must say that car looks very sleek moving through there. And hopefully they'll be able to continue to improve as the session goes on. You've got Zin, I believe, in fourth place as well, doing tremendously well. One of the names that we were less familiar with at the beginning of this session. Zin only, I think, is how to pronounce that, but I'm very happy to be corrected if someone wants to tell me otherwise. Currently, just a 10th behind a top three qualifying position. So no doubt there's a little bit more time left in the bank, and they'll be going for just a little bit more. With the top six going through, they're in a good position, but it's definitely not sitting safe.
You're not wrong. This is the opportunity here for new drivers to announce themselves, following the footsteps of Igor Fraga, following the footsteps of Isaac Gillison, indeed, follow in the footsteps of Christian Kwiatniewski. Drivers that have had success from the G Challenge now. Kwiatniewski races for Fernando Alonso Racing. We've got Igor Fraga racing in Formula 3. Isaac Gillison is racing for Veloce Esports, one of the biggest esports within sim racing now. They're getting opportunity after opportunity. And this is where it all begins. Get a good performance here. Get yourself on the radar, and then you can get yourself to that regional final and really show what you are indeed made of. But as it stands then, Mr. Schumacher still on pole position, Sarvin second, Exwell third, and it just hasn't changed the top six realistically here. With 1 minute 27 seconds to go, they really do need to start pulling their fingers out here. And actually, to be fair, Aldo Zampatti, the way he's crossed the line here, he would actually get 2 more laps remaining. So qualifying might be a little bit more extended than we first thought.
This is really quite intense. Very similar to both the Xbox and PlayStation lobbies, but with more cars involved. Because if you take a look at the top two, who seem to be a little bit ahead of everyone else, guess what? Between 0.7 of a second and 1.3 seconds off the pole sitter's pace, we've got third all the way down to 11th, Luke. This is absolutely anybody's to go in and grab the top six. Of course, we cannot take away from Mr. Schumacher, who's doing a phenomenal job right now. It doesn't look like anyone is, even getting close, and in some cases backwards, although that doesn't appear to have impeded Zampatti's lap. However, everybody else is still fighting absolutely tooth and nail for those places. And between second and third right now is literally 1,000th of a second in it. These guys are leaving nothing on the table.
Well, Zampatti's just been pushed down into P8, has shut down Woody, just moved up into P4. But if you look then from P2 down to Kumori, who's currently in P13, there's a second between them. There's going to be so much jostling for position here. It's going to be untrue. Schumacher's going to want to try and get out in the lead here as early as possible and just, that's it, done and dusted. But for everybody else here, I feel like there's going to be a proper battle on. And I could see genuinely anyone down to... I really think anyone from the top 16 could win or come, well, not win maybe, but come in that top six for sure.
Qualifying now complete. A minute and a half for everybody to finish their laps. And you mentioned before, Zamori will have another crack at it. And we can see, well, all of the top six still out on track. Just got confirmation it is indeed Z1 and only, or I guess Z1 for short. Still out on track 7.55. That's a lot of time to make up on the pole lap, but really just focus on making sure they cement a position in the top six. Everybody going for one final hurrah, but will we see improvements in position? So many cars below the top 8, actually, Luke, already bowing out of the session saying, nope, this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, well, they just would have finished their laps, to be honest with you, John. They just timed it. You know, they have to get space on circuit. If everyone crossed the line at the same time, no one would get a really good lap time in. So it's just the way they timed it. But yeah, a few of them would have definitely thought that way as well. Maybe they've hit their personal best already and thought, do you know what? I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes just getting into the zone for the race. I don't feel like I'm going to improve. So yeah, you're probably right as well. So it's, there's loads of different aspects in terms of qualifying. I have it many a times in my racing leagues where someone hits pole position and then they'll post to my chat going, I've never gone that fast before. I'm done. Thank you. Going to focus now on the race. And in that extra bit of time there, you could have spent it doing a couple of laps. And well, if you make a mistake in those couple of laps, that'll be the last thing that's in your head going into the race. So if you just nailed a lap, then why not just go to the pits and, be relaxed about the situation. So again, psychological battles with yourself coming involved. We can see Sav there saying good luck to everybody. He's pretty happy. But John, take it away. Here's your top 10.
And Mr. Schumacher takes what turns out to be a comfortable pole position by nearly 0.6 of a second. We've got Wolf in second place and Sav rounding out the top 3. Woody manages to slot into 4th, only narrowly ahead of Z1 and only in 5th place. We then have Davies B and Max A Power in 6th and 7th, ahead of Aldo Zampatti, who had a couple of extra laps there at the end, but couldn't quite make it work. Half a tenth behind Zampatti, we've got Scorpion 66, and Saitama-san is going to round out the top 10. Now remember, in this PC lobby, ladies and gentlemen, we have the top 6 going through to the race. And thankfully for this race, we've got a flag man upstairs. Oh, no, not actually waving yet. I think he's despondent after no one listened to him in the PlayStation race, but we should be able to get this lobby up and running very shortly.
Oh, he's waving now. He's trying to prove you wrong at this point, John. Don't take on the flag man. The flag man always wins.
So sad. He was sat there waving the flag. No one listening to him.
He'll always win. Just don't take him on. Let's just leave it at that because he's going to get angry. All right. He's going to start throwing flags onto the track and all sorts of shenanigans are going to go down. No, we really do not want that. Here we go then. We've got ourselves maximum of 1 minute, 20 seconds for all of the drivers to ready up. There are 21 drivers here. So again, there's always one. You could have 50 drivers on the grid right now, and it'll always just be one that doesn't ready up and makes us wait the full time. But that is their right. They could do that. So that's absolutely fine. But 21 drivers then, top 6 will advance to the regional finals here from Indianapolis for the North America Logitech McLaren G Challenge regional finals. Like, that is a huge opportunity. Like I said, winners of this competition have gone on to do some unbelievable things within sim racing and outside of sim racing, real life racing opportunities as well. So this is where it begins, really. The time trials have got you to this position where it is all about the racing. And, well, we're about to get the red lights then. There's 2, there's 3, and there we go. We have got the green light to go racing, and the race is on. And I'll tell you what, Schumacher and X-Wolf have got a great start here. Oh, there's all sorts of contact in the background. Looks like a car has not got off the line at all here. So I'm not too sure who that is. But we will have a look very, very shortly. They've not got off the line here at all. I wonder whether they might have even tabbed out. And, well, Schumacher's lost the lead to X-Wolf. X-Wolf leads. Oh, contact in the background then between what looks like P5 and P6. So you're in a comfortable position, and we just get a T-bone, which is now going to promote Woody up into 3rd. We've got Sav in 4th, Max Power in 5th position. A little bit further back then, in the bubble spot right now is Shiznik USA. So great stuff from him. And, well, we go a bit further back here, and Arvin Nero was involved there, but it looks like a car has not got off the line here in the start. Maybe stalled the engine actually as well. That is a possibility. And unfortunately, it's caused a bit of a pile up at the background, and ultimately one driver on its roof.
Unfortunately, I can't shed a light on which car didn't get off the line, but I'm very, very sad to say that it was actually Davey and Zambrotta who got involved just after turn 1. Really sad considering Davey's qualifying position, really looking forward to seeing what great things they could do in the race. But both of those cars now, unfortunately, Luke, well down the field.
Just you're in and around the top 6. Why are you taking chances like that? It just makes no. Like, I understand if it's a, it's a point system, a league race where you're going to earn more points for being higher up the order. But top 6, P1 and P6 are worth exactly the same. It makes no sense, and ultimately they are now almost impossible for them to qualify here. We're on board then with Shutdown Woody, not really able to keep pace with the front 2 as it stands, but he's in a comfortable spot, P3. He won't be too worried, and he might be even doing that on purpose. Just sit back, relax, let them 2 go at it, and maybe there's a chance of winning this race. Again, it doesn't matter if you win this race or indeed if you finish in 2nd, but I tell you what, There's life in the old dog yet, because X-Wolf right now leads the way, of course. He qualified from PlayStation 4 into the World Final last year in Vegas, and he's leading out the quarterfinal here for North America on PC.
A very exciting race so far. Certainly the most incident-packed lap 1 we have seen today. We will get information about exactly what happened, of course, later on as the race progresses. But in the meantime, these drivers have got a point to prove and a place in the top 6 to cement. X-Wolf at the moment managing to hold on from Mr. Schumacher comfortably. Although that said, Mr. Schumacher is not allowing a gap to form, staying within about a third of a second. And it's actually going to be Woody who will be struggling to potentially keep up with them, losing about 0.4 of a second in the last half lap. But maybe that's just giving them a bit of breathing room. And like you say, Luke, if the front two decide that a tussle is worthwhile, Woody's going to come straight back into contention.
Schumacher doesn't have an off button. I'm telling you now, if there's an opportunity to make up to P1, he will take that opportunity every day of the week and twice on Sundays. So, yeah, you've got to be very, very careful here. And if I was X-Wolf and he does make a lunge on me, I'm letting him go. I'm letting him go here. I'm just going to comfortably take P2, and I am off to the bank. But look at this, my little prediction of Kumori currently then battling a three-way battle on the bubble right now. And as it stands then, we have got Shiznit USA, who's just made a bit of a mistake there, and everyone did indeed check up behind. And actually, that might have given damage then to Z1 and Only and to Kumori. But Kumori up from P13 up to P8. So he's the biggest mover and shaker as it stands, although he's just lost a bit of time there. I'm wondering whether indeed he does have contact. The front two then separated by 0.3 of a second. So we're going to try and keep an eye on of course, the leaders, but we also want to keep an eye on the bubble right now, because that's the important position, is the bubble. Of course, the top 6 are the only ones that qualify for our regional finals. And you can see here, Kumori is just in behind the battle for P6. So it's getting interesting here. There's layers to this story, and I cannot wait to peel them back, John.
I think that Kumori is in an excellent position right now, which sounds weird because, you know, they're at the end of the day, they're not inside the top 6. But with how much action there's been in this race so far, I get the feeling we haven't seen the end of it, Luke. And therefore, keeping your nose clean, allowing everyone else to fight and focusing on your own race could well be the way to go here. So Kumori, not just in with a chance, potentially a very good one as well.
I think there's a really good point you made there, because it's not like both drivers in front are in a qualifying position right now. So Z1 and Only will have to attack. So that means it is going to slow them down. So now if they were P5 and P6, Kumori would be like, oh, yeah, they might be a bit more placid towards each other. We're not going to see the action that we want. I'll tell you what, there's an accidental move up the inside there. He gets turned in on, and it's a bit of 6-1, half a dozen of the other. And now that's given an opportunity for flip mode. So flip mode now is in P9, just in behind Kumori, as we do indeed go trackside then. So, yeah, he's in a perfect spot right now, because they have to work, they have to battle with each other for one of them to qualify. So he could indeed take full advantage. The front two still separated by 0.3 of a second. X-Wolf, though, doing everything in his power. He did a 23 on a previous lap, which we're used to seeing in qualifying, but a race pace 23. We've only seen that from 2 drivers, and they were both on PlayStation here. And actually, there's no one in this lobby right now anywhere near the 23s, apart from, actually, to be fair, Shutdown Woody, who's currently in P3. Again, I think Woody's just taking time off of his lap times here, just staying in P3. A podium's good enough for him to get through, and he doesn't really want to duke it out with the front two here, because it makes no difference.
We saw a really good shot of Kumori heading into T1, and a classic example of looking for opportunities when the cars in front of you are busy fighting. Kumori braking a little bit late and unfortunately inviting a bit of contact. Still within touching distance though, but having to reset that to about 5 to 7 of a second. And that means that Flip is going to be getting up very, very close to him indeed. So really exciting to be on board with that and capturing the action as we're on board and racing. But meanwhile, Mr. Schumacher still in second place, being nice and comfortable, staying within half a second, trying to decide when might be a good time to attack. I get the feeling that until there's a healthier gap building up behind 3rd and 4th place, there's no real reason for them to do it right now. If he's got something in reserve and he wants to pull something out of the hat, fair play to him, but I don't think they need to do it in the first half of the race.
No, this is what they've got to be worried about. They've got to be worried about, you know, slowing each other down and potentially putting themselves in the clutches of these 4 drivers. So we've now got 4 drivers. Due to the incident into turn 1 on the previous lap between Kumori, Z1 and Only, it's now given Flip Mode an opportunity just to close up. His teammate Wildwin is in P11, and he is faster than these drivers in front, that's for sure. He must have been involved in something, And Wildwin wasn't actually going to be racing today. He had a naming ceremony to go to. So I guess he's done the right thing and binned that off for this event, which is great to see. Sorry if you're watching right now, the naming ceremony. Hopefully you named them, I don't know, something like Corey, because that is his name. Anyway, into the final few quarters here, and now you can see the jostling for position has put now Z1 and only into that 6th position. So he's got the position, but look how much time it's cost him, John. And this is what it means. You know, battling with each other around a circuit such as this, it costs you so much time. And flip mode now almost onto the back of them. And you can see there a little bit of a mistake in front there by Kumori. But Kumori now is really right involved. He doesn't really want to get too much involved in this slipstream battle as well. As you can see, he's not moving to try and stay in. Flip mode, though, just struggling ever so slightly to keep up with pace. As they go down in towards turn number 1. Is there contact between two drivers there? Well, they are side by side. And I tell you what, Z1 and only, he's just about hung on, but the door's been left wide open then for Kumori. Contact between the two. And as it stands then, it is Z1 and only still holding on to that 6th position. Got the move done, and he's moving on. Shizniz, unfortunately, is now down into 7th position and now under pressure here from Kumori. The lead is 0.7 of a second. It has indeed increased ever so slightly. But this battle for that final qualifying spot is really heating up, John.
This is perfect, I think. When you're in a position where you have to fight for the position, but at the same time knowing that fighting for that position loses you time, everybody just has heightened senses, a little bit more tension, everyone's just a bit more on edge, and it does invite the occasional mistake. So what I'm looking for right now is the lap time from Z1 and only. That has absolutely got to be critical. If we get half a second on the battle behind him, then he is going to have a much easier time in the second half of this race. But we need to put in a couple of qualifying laps now, stop thinking about what's going on behind you and just focus on increasing that gap to a comfortable level. That is absolutely key for his race, arguably more so than the final lap at this point.
Yeah, and he's exactly done that as well. You can see he's already got that nice little gap there. It's good enough to work with, that's for sure. You've got to be careful up and towards turn number 1 because you're going to give the drivers in behind you a lot of room to work with in terms of late braking away. You see exactly there from Shizniz that he's taken that opportunity and now they've closed back up. Although on the power a little bit too early, Kumori struggling to really keep pace. So checking in with the leaders again. And well, these two, maybe Schumacher is playing ball this time. For me, I don't think he's got an off button, but well, he's not tried to make any advances. And it becomes very interesting between Sav and Max A Power right now. So it looks like Max A Power's got more pace, and actually he was half a second faster on a previous lap. And what do you do if you Sav? If you get loads of pressure from behind, you've got a nice buffer to P6, do you let him go? If you're Max, do you just stay behind? I don't know.
Oh, I mean, it's always easy to answer with your head, but at the end of the day, these guys are racers with their hearts as well, aren't they, Luke? Because my head would say, well, if you've got a 10-second gap and you're fairly confident you can hold it, if they start peeking down the inside, they start forcing you to take a defensive line, let them go. You're fine. You've still got that buffer of Z1 and only in 6th place. That's the person who has to really watch out for their position, not you. But hopefully, from these drivers' points of view, they start realizing this, they take their time, they play ball with each other, and they go, let's just extend this gap and chill out. And if you want to do some sort of last lap heroics to gain that extra position, fine. But that's not important right now. What's important is we finish inside the top 6. And the top 5 have got a really healthy gap. Like, it has to be said. They need to be making mistakes for someone else to break into that right now.
It is between these three right now. Z1 and only's taken his opportunity beautifully well. And Shizniz just cannot shake off Kumori, which means he can't push forwards here. But again, this is the final qualifying position from the North Americans to get into that regional final. And someone's going to have to take a chance here. Kumori just dropping ever so slightly further back then. And well, Shizniz might be able to push forward again here. Lap times, though, they're lacking now. And actually, Z1 and only is the fastest. Only one in the 25s, actually, out of this group of cars. And actually, the only one in the 25s. No one behind him is in the 25s at all here. And yeah, this is where it becomes really interesting. You've got to hold your nerve. You're not catching up to the group in front of you. You know you've only got to focus on the people behind you. You've got to keep them behind you. And Shizniz has got to... The real pressure's on him, to be completely honest, because he's got to put in qualifying laps now and not make a mistake.
It's arguably the worst position in the field to be from a pressure point of view. If you're Shiz right now, you like you said, every lap has to be pristine. But not only that, you're half expecting someone in front of you to make a mistake, and then you have to be able, on possibly a split second's notice, to capitalize on that, get the right line, avoid making contact, and get through. It's a lot of pressure, not because they can't get they can't get in front of each other. These guys have racecraft. They know what they're doing. It's pressure because you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know when you're going to be gifted that opportunity or if you're going to be gifted that opportunity. That means you're at 110% watching the entire time. When am I going to be able to get that chance? Oh, by the way, you're doing this while you're putting in qualifying laps. It's a very, very tough place to be.
And as we say that, we're being proved wrong once again because Shiznit is actually putting in those qualifying laps. He is closing that gap. 0.3 of a second. No mistakes being made right now. I feel like we need to check it out from his cockpit cam and see that gap visibly come down. You see him riding the curbs there. He's got to ride all the curbs. This is a key part of the circuit. This is where you can make up the most time along here. Obviously, the slipstream helps on the big, long straights, but in terms of racecraft and driving ability, this is where you make up most of your time. And you can see there that actually Z1 and only just drove away through that section of circuit. So Shiznit is just struggling ever so slightly. He's dropped Kumori now, though, so he can just focus on the race leader. And actually, we look not race leader, P6. As you can see here, Schumacher is trying to make a move here potentially for the lead. And X-Wolf goes late on the brakes here, and he's not able to turn in. And wow, they don't need to be doing this, but I guess they're going to give us a spectacle. They've dropped P3. So even with a mistake here, they're probably both likely to still qualify with 7 minutes left on the clock. But yeah, they're giving us a bit of a show. But we've got to get back to the bubble then, as it's now only 0.7 of a second. He is definitely within slipstream range. He's able to get on the brakes a little bit later. You can see he's got damage to the front of his car, though, John, in terms of the bonnet, just ever so slightly raised. And that was from the contact between him, Kumori, and indeed Z1 and only. Is that affecting his straight line speed? I think it probably is. I think it's actually probably affecting more the aero, because he seems to be losing a lot of time through the corners, for my money. But again, he's just dropped again. He's dropped a load of time. It's nearly a second now. So gone from 0.7 to a second through the first sector. And just dropping out of that slipstream zone. Z1 and only is doing everything he needs to do right now. Is he going to be able to get it across the line? And regardless of whichever one of these does indeed get that P6, John, it's going to be another new driver making it towards our North America regional finals.
The biggest issue when you're suffering from tiny bits of damage like that is not that they're necessarily directly impacting your lap time. It's all very indirect. And let me explain why. It's not that the car is specifically behaving in a way where you just lose your top speed or something like that. The problem is it gets harder to predict what the car is going to do. Let's say you want to take a different line. You're either defending or you're attacking someone else. You want to brake a little bit later. The car's going to behave a little differently to how you have been doing the entire time during qualifying, during the race, during your practice. And it's impossible to predict every single bit of damage and what it's going to do. So that's what these guys have to deal with right now. If you suffer from that kind of damage early in the race, it enters a bit of unpredictability to the car, and that means everything you want to do that's out of the ordinary just suddenly gets that much harder because you're having to guess what the car's going to do at every turn.
That's a really nice explanation, John, actually. Really good work. As we now have the battle for the lead here, and I think if the opportunity presents itself, it's going to go down. It's very clean so far. No contact between the two of them as it stands. Again, they're both in prime position to qualify for the regional finals. But it will just take one bit of contact, one serious bit of damage, and it could be race over. So again, they've just got to be very, very careful, manage this race. And well, there's a late lunge up the inside. Not quite close enough to do so. And again, they don't need to be doing this. I don't know why they're doing this. I know it's exciting. It's great for us, John, but you know, you've got to be looking at your tournament life here. Oh, it's great.
I love it. Every second.
You've got to be looking at your tournament life.
Let's go. Every single second. Not a problem whatsoever. Schumacher is asking Wolf, look, are you going to give this to me? Am I going to have to take it from you? And X-Wolf is saying, you're going to have to take every last inch of the racetrack.
Oh,
but Mr. Schumacher,
what a move.
Round the outside. And actually, X-Wolf just about manages to hold on by the skin of his teeth. Fantastic racing here for first and second. Now they have got 3 and a bit seconds on third place. I'm so glad the boys are giving us a show today.
Oh, what a move that was from X-Wolf to hold on to that position. Schumacher was nailed on to go around the outside. It's such a tough corner to go around the outside. And I think X-Wolf might be flashing him through at this point. Or is he actually going for it? No, they are both going for it here. Side-by-side action between the two of them. And X-Wolf there with the touch as he goes onto the grass here. Schumacher does take the lead in a very Schumacher-esque move. But I think X-Wolf now backs off. I think he's going to be on tilt otherwise. Just back off. Let him go. Just both of you qualify. We want to see this in the regional finals. Don't worry about it now.
A little bit of a slide coming out from Schumacher shortly after making the overtake as well. So not exactly getting the most out of the traction. Remember, we're reaching that point in the race now where that tire degradation can actually be playing a little bit into how these cars are handling and how they're managing to take their lines around these corners. Much more of a tidy, analytical line being taken there by X-Wolf as well, looking for that slide once more, just in case there's an opportunity to go into turn one. But on this occasion, I think it's going to be enough. I don't really see a lunge into T1 here, although he's certainly giving it a look.
Oh, there's contact between the two of them there. Schumacher squeezed the door closed. X-Wolf just about gets away from it. And all of a sudden, with 2 minutes, 40 seconds to go, you look at this. Max A Power's closing in. Saav's closing in. Again, they've got 14 seconds on this group here, where Z1 and Only, again, has done some incredible work here to be in that top 6 and just ever so slightly extending that lead every single lap. So it looks like we've got a solid 6 here. But these two are just giving us a show right now.
They really are. Z1 and Only just extending the lead from Shiz. Shiz has been putting those qualifying laps in, by the way, but unfortunately also reliant on potentially a mistake from in front, and that just hasn't been forthcoming. So Z1 and Only need to give them credit for a fantastic consistency job as we now return to the front of the pack, where X-Wolf clearly still not happy in second place, trying to give it another go against Schumacher. 3/10 out now, moving towards the start. I'm not really sure they should be fighting. Like, even me, I want to see them race all the way to the checkered flag. And even I'm starting to come around to what you said earlier, Luke. I'm thinking, hang on, at this point, the stakes might just be a little bit too high.
Yeah, I agree. And X-Wolf had a couple of nibbles there, and Schumacher moved very late in the braking zones. And I think X-Wolf realizes now that Schumacher wants it. Let him have it at this point of the race. If P1 means that much to you, you can have it. It doesn't make a difference, P1 or P2, realistically. I guess if they come up against each other in the next round, of course they will if they both qualify. Schumacher's got one up on X-Wolf, and that may play psychologically into Schumacher's hands. But at this point, you know, X-Wolf's been to the regional finals. He's been to the world finals now. He knows he's got more experience when it comes to the big time within the Logitech McLaren G Challenge. So just chill, take P2, move on, have a great day, do what you need to do, have a gin and tonic at the end of the day. You're all in good spot. But they will have one more lap to go here. I'm going to just go off camera from them so we don't preempt anything, to be completely honest. Z1 still leading out the way. And I've been impressed with this drive here, John. Not going to lie, new driver that I've never really come across in terms of the Project Cars 2 esports, but really announced himself here. And I think it's a really mature drive because there was contact between him, between Shiznit and indeed between Komori. So they all had a little bit of damage, but he's just not tried to overdrive the car. He's just been taking a 10th here and a 10th there away from the drivers in behind and just, you know, making that P6 his own. And that shows a real deep maturity level that he could genuinely lean on moving forward in this competition. And, you know, we're looking at these 6 names here. They've all been very, very, very quick today. But on Xbox and on PlayStation, I don't know, we got a hell of a regional final coming our way.
I feel like you've described that perfectly, Luke. Mature is absolutely the word that I would use for Z1 and Only. A couple of dodgy moments early on in the race. They had contact as well. However, a very, very calm drive. Under pressure as well. Don't forget, Shiz was within 5/10 at one point. And Z1 and Only has been very, very calm with how they've approached the race and done a phenomenal job in the closing stages. Still got a lap to go, so this hasn't all been formalized yet. But you know what? Even if they lose the position at this point, it is still a great drive and nothing can take away. But ultimately, it's the top 6 that go to the regional final, and that's what these guys are going to be looking to do in the next minute or two.
I want to give a quick shout out here to Arvin Nero. He was involved in a big smash at the start of this race. We've had 3 drivers that have indeed left the session due to them not maybe having a chance to go through. And Big Ugly Muscle, I want to give him a shout out. And I want to give Zampatti a shout out as well. They could easily have left this session. They got serious damage to the car. They got no chance of qualifying, but they've all stuck around to the end. And I'm telling you, you know, it will be their day one day. It will be their time one day, and sticking around, having this sort of mentality will be, you know, aiding them in their success moving forward. Today's not the day, of course. Look at the state of that car. You know, that looks like a very, very expensive mistake that's happened here today. But we've got to talk about the people that have qualified, because Schumacher will take the race victory here and the first slot into our regional finals. X-Wolf does come across the line in second. We've then got Shutdown Woody in third, Sav in fourth, Power Max A Power is in 5th. And well, Z1 and Only, as we said, a very mature drive from Z1 and Only. And well, he is going to book his place into the regional finals, of course, pending any appeals that do indeed come in. But I tell you what, we have got a sensational event coming your way. And North America today have really shown up.
I think shown up is even an understatement. We've had so much great driving, but some really. I think what stood out to me today are the mature drives from people who have qualified. I'm looking at people who just sort of chilled out, did what they needed to do. I'm looking at the Roll Kings. I'm looking at Snipper. I'm looking at Source. I'm looking at Z1 and Only. There have been quite a few names today where I think rather than be a flash in the pan, their focus has been consistency, it's been on maturity, it's been on being in the right place at the right time and knowing when to push and when to back off. So absolutely fantastic stuff. So congratulations to Schumacher, Mr. Schumacher, who wins this race ahead of X-Wolf, Woody, Sarv, Max A Power, and Z1 and Only, who are provisionally, at least, your regional qualifiers for North America. They will join Physique, Roll King, Operator, Cone Dodger, Snipper Pig, and Source as the 12 who are going to be going to the regional final pending any appeal. And you can see outside the top 6, Shiz finishing just outside and Kumori going to be finishing just behind them as well. The top 10 is rounded out by Flip Mode, who had possible opportunities, but not that many, unfortunately, as the cars in front of him started speeding away. And then Wild Win will close out the top 10. Absolutely great stuff in all 3 of our races today. A couple of hiccups, especially in the middle where we had to restart a race, but I'm very, very glad all that managed to pass without too much incident. And the re-race was also just as exciting as the first. So that rounds out all 3 of the races today. Very, very exciting stuff. And really, we're being set up for a very tasty regional final. Luke, what do you think we're going to see now that we know the 12 races that are going to be there?
Well, historically, North America has been the weakest region, has been for some time for Project Cars 2. And we've just seen some very, very strong performances that, for me, when we get to the regional final, it's going to be really, really exciting to see. I feel like we've got our best 12 we've ever had for this stage of the competition for North America. But it bodes well. We've had a great night tonight, and we've still got 3 more regions to indeed do in the quarterfinal phase. So it's only going to get better from here.
And speaking of getting better from here, this, of course, was just the first week's broadcast. We've got plenty more racing coming your way in the Logitech McLaren G Challenge. Next week, of course, we're going to be moving on to the Asia-Pacific region, where we are going to see more drivers qualify for the regional final there. And we go to Sugo. So different races.
Whoa. You're not saying it right, man. You're not saying it right.
Oh.
We're going to Sugo.
Sugo. Is that better?
There you go. Yes.
There we go. Okay. Excellent. I'll make sure to keep that up throughout the duration of next week's broadcast as well. It's going to be an interesting one for sure. Xbox, of course, PlayStation, and PC all have drivers that will be qualifying to the regional final there. So, like you say, if North America is quote-unquote historically the weakest region, I'm not sure I believe that anymore. Or if they are, then the quality of racing that we're going to see across the next couple of weeks are going to be absolutely superb, because we were treated not only to some fantastic racing today, but some blistering lap times and some very scary consistency from some very quick drivers as well.
The gauntlet's been thrown down. North America has shown up. It's now up to the other 3 regions now to show up as well. Whose time is it now?
We'll have to wait and find out. Luke, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Any closing thoughts on North America before we shut that chapter and move on to APAC next week?
Well, we can't officially shut the chapter, but I guess we can not shut the book. We can shut the chapter, but yeah, the regional final is going to be incredible. I'm so excited for it. I was a little bit apprehensive coming in due to the history of North America, but I'm just so glad that over the last sort of 12 months, it really has grown. And yeah, I'm just super excited. And then we've got 3 more quarterfinals coming up as well next week. We've got 9 more races in the quarterfinals coming up, which is just going to be incredible. The strongest region yet to come, which is notoriously EU. So that's going to be super, super exciting. We just got loads of racing action And, that's what we want to see, really, isn't it? We're all sim racing fans at the end of the day. We just want to see door-to-door, wheel-to-wheel action. And, well, we're going to get that in abundance.
North America has served us up an absolute treat across Xbox, PlayStation, and PC this week. We move on to APAC next week. And, of course, the Logitech McLaren G Challenge rolls on from there as we get ever closer to the regional finals. Thank you very much, Luke Crane. My name's John Sargent. Have a fantastic evening, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next week for more racing. Take care.